Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto uncovers his true potential. One discussion in the academy introduces Naruto to his first real friends and changes his life forever. Together, they will work hard, push each other, and unlock their true potential. Before we start, kindly like and subscribe to this channel, and look over the description box for the author of this amazing storyline. Welcome aboard. Chapter 37, The Temple of Uzushiogakure. 3 days after leaving Konoha, the merchant caravan, led by Anko, Hinata, Shikamaru, and Dosu, arrived at Akita, a port town on the coast of Hai no Kuni. Immediately, Anko rented a boat to carry the caravan, along with the shinobi, the remaining way to Mizu no Kuni. The various merchants boarded the ship nonchalantly and cheerfully, excited to be on their way back to their homeland. The Konoha shinobi, on the other hand, were a lot more anxious to board. I've never been on a boat before. Hinata commented as she looked out into the water. I haven't even seen the sea before. Shikamaru added. Are you too anxious? Dosu questioned. Shikamaru shook his head in response. Hinata, on the other hand, seemed a little hesitant to respond. It took her a few seconds before she sighed and finally nodded her head. My father had a relatively bad experience on water the first time he had to do a mission out this far from Konoha. He got really sick and could barely perform during the rest of the mission. If he, of all people, could get that bad from a simple boat ride, what hope do I have to have a good experience? Hinata sighed. Heh. Shikamaru started to chuckle to himself. Hyuga Hayashi getting seasick, that's actually pretty hilarious. Just imagining your father bent over on the side of the boat, begging to see land, my dad would probably find it hilarious. Don't say anything about that to him. Hinata begged immediately. And my father would not want anybody to know something like that happened to him. Our fathers don't talk unless they have business with each other. As if my dad would say anything to him about the topic. Shikamaru scoffed in response. Unless he was drunk or something. Shikamaru-kun. Please. The Hyuga heiress once again pleaded. Heh. Dosu laughed quietly to himself. You two have an amusing dynamic. Did you say something? Shikamaru questioned as he and Hinata turned their attention to their third teammate. Nothing of worth. The former Oto Genin replied with a shrug. He then made a hand gesture, encouraging them to talk. Shikamaru sighed in response. He and Hinata had tried to talk to Dosu a couple of times during their mission. He would answer any questions they had for him about the mission or his capabilities, but whenever they tried to bring up simple small talk, he would quickly try and end the conversation or give simple answers. He was a blatant introvert. The only people that could compare to him were Shino or Han, but even then, they at least had their moments. Dosu seemed to always be content with just simply watching people, and only occasionally chiming in. And Naruto is somehow his friend and gets him to talk? The Nara questioned in his head. The thought made him chuckle slightly. Typical Naruto. I don't think there's anybody immune to his charisma. Hey, you all getting on board the ship? The three Konoha shinobi turned to the sound of the voice. Anko was standing with her hands on her hips at the entrance to the boat. She was giving the three of them a look, urging for them to get on board. Shikamaru, Hinata, and Dosu nodded wordlessly at her question and got on board the ship. As they finally got on, one of the merchants walked over to them. Excuse me, Anko-san, but I have a question for you. Do you know how long it will take before we arrive? The merchant questioned. Anko immediately studied the merchant, trying to recall her name. She looked young, barely older than Hinata, Shikamaru, and Dosu. She had long, straight black hair, pale skin, and dark brown eyes. She wore a pink, sleeveless kimono with red edges and a white obi tied around her waist in a bow. The young girl looked at the shinobi with a bright smile on her face. It took Anko a few seconds before she finally got an answer to her question. Haku, was it? She questioned. The merchant nodded. Sorry about that. Yeah, it should only take us 2 days on boat before we disembark. Once we arrive, it should only take a half a day. We'll be arriving nearby the town where you guys are supposed to get to. That'll be a relief. The merchant, Haku, replied. I have business with an old friend that I need to get taken care of quickly. Rest assured, madam. We will be there shortly. Dosu spoke up to her. Thank you very much. Haku faced the bandage-wearing shinobi. Her smile seemed to gain a teasing glint to it. However, I am a boy. Silence filled the area between the group. Anko, Dosu, Shikamaru, and Hinata looked at the merchant in shock, trying to process his words. What? What? Shikamaru finally found his voice, and summed up the Konoha shinobi's thoughts. He. Haku chuckled to himself. Don't think anything about it. It happens all the time. Anyway, I just wanted to ask my question. I will leave you all be for now. With those words, Haku walked off to join the rest of the merchant caravan. The 4 Konoha shinobi continued to stare blankly at the boy as he left. He was pretty. Much prettier than any girl I had ever met. Dosu mumbled to himself softly. I would agree. Hinata blushed to herself. She recalled seeing Haku for the first time during the mission and feeling slightly jealous at his natural looks. I was jealous of a boy. Disregarding that shocking revelation, Anko commented, gathering attention to herself. Anyway, I wanted to let you guys know about how these next few days are going to work. Shikamaru, Hinata, and Dosu seemed to immediately get over their shock and give the jonin their full attention. Basically, we are mainly going to be on the edges of the boat trying to keep an eye on any threats. The main common threat would be piracy, which we will handle like any bandits. Be warned though, pirates are more likely to actually know jutsu and be shinobi, so be extra careful. We need to be alert every moment while the boat is in motion to make sure we don't get the merchants injured. Anko explained. After we land the boat in Mizu no Kuni, the real mission begins. Taking them back to their village, right? Hinata questioned. But, in my opinion, the real mission is to avoid any contact with the Mizukage shinobi or the Kirigakure rebels. The jonin explained. Instantaneously, the other 3 shinobi swallowed deeply. The Kirigakure civil war was infamous throughout the elemental nations. The war between the Yonde Mizukage, Yagura, and the Kirigakure rebels, led by Terumi Mei. It was a bloody conflict with many civilians have been caught in between. Just out of curiosity, is a B rank an appropriate level for this mission? Dosu questioned. The more I think about it, the more I realize that this mission has a strong possibility to end badly. No, the mission is ranked correctly. We can't make every mission involved with Mizu no Kuni in A rank. This is what the merchant caravan paid for and, in theory, we shouldn't have to worry about anything. We won't be on land in Mizu no Kuni for too long and none of the merchants have a background that would cause either side in the civil war to hunt us. We also benefit from the fact that Konoha has never taken a side in the conflict. Neither Yagura nor Mei would risk killing Konoha shinobi and causing our village to side against them. Anko explained. I'm just talking in general about worst-case scenarios. We're shinobi, so we need to be prepared for them. Understood? Her 3 subordinates nodded in understanding. Anko, pleased with their response, proceeded to walk off. I'm going to do a head count and make sure everyone is accounted for. Once that's done, I'll signal the boat driver to take us off. We'll be on the way to Mizu no Kuni in no time. Jiraiya and his squad walked slowly through the ruins of Uzushi-Ogakure. There was too much for the 3 Uzumaki cousins to absorb. There were so many destroyed buildings and so little nature. Everything seemed as if it was just recently destroyed and burned to the ground. The village as a whole gave an eerie feeling to the entire group. Every few moments, the group would stop to examine a particular building or ruins together. Each time, they would find nothing of worth. Everything that was buried in certain areas seemed to have either been destroyed or already taken. It added to the feeling of the area, as if not a single soul had walked the grounds of Yuzushiogakure in decades. And this place was a former hidden village? Naruto mumbled the thought. Oh yeah. One of the more populated ones, too. Jiraiya answered blankly. Its population rivaled the 5 major villages. It certainly had more than Kiri and Suna at the time, at least. And everyone who lived here was either killed or scattered. Karin stated quietly as tears filled up in her eyes. She quickly took off her glasses and brushed them away. This is horrible. This is why nobody in Konoha likes to come here. And this is why your mom never took a step back here after the invasion, Naruto. Jiraiya answered sadly. The destruction was too much to bear for her. I think her parents died during the invasion too. My grandparents. The Uzumaki continued to mumble. He closed his eyes, as if he was resisting the urge to cry at the thought. The group continued to walk throughout the village in silence. After about 30 minutes of aimless walking, they stopped in front of a large, green brick building. There were certain holes in the building and columns toppled over that showed destruction, but the overall building seemed to still be standing. Jiraiya, upon arriving at the building, gestured at a brown, wooden door at the front of the building. This is one of the few sites in the village that remain standing. And you see that seal above the door? He questioned them. Naruto, Karin, and Tayuya looked closely and noticed a tag with the seal that resembled the Uzumaki clan symbol. I've done some investigation of it, that's a blood seal. Only somebody with the blood of the castor can enter the building that it is protecting. I'm certain that's part of the reason why the building has remained standing. So the castor was an Uzumaki. Only members of our clan can enter. Tayuya commented as she walked closer to the door. If you guys are going to find anything about your clan that would be worthwhile to you, it would be in there. I can't follow you inside, so as the Hokage ordered, Naruto will be leading. Jiraiya informed them. You sure you can't come in with us, Jiraiya? Naruto questioned, taking a moment to not use his newly appointed Ero-Sennin nickname. You are an expert in Fuin Jutsu. Surely you know how to get past the seal. Kid, I am an expert in the art, yes, but I couldn't hold a candle against some of the Fuin Jutsu users of your clan. I've seen people try to get in there and get themselves burned to the ground immediately for trying. I'm not risking it. The Sannin informed them with a shrug. Just go in without me. I'll entertain myself while you are all observing the inside of the building. Got it. The blonde Uzumaki nodded in understanding. He then turned to face his cousins. Are you two ready to go inside? Both Karin and Tayuya nodded in response. Taking a deep breath, Naruto walked forward to the building's entrance with Tayuya and Karin close behind. Hesitantly, he brought his hands to the wooden door and pushed it open with ease. He then entered the building, followed closely behind by his cousins. Upon entering the building, the 3 Uzumaki cousins were greeted with the sight of a small, simple room with 3 corridors. The corridor on the left was completely covered in rubble and seemed to head to the outside, suggesting that there was nothing to be found in that direction. The corridor to the right and the corridor straight forward, on the other hand, had doors at the end. Let's start with the one on the right. Naruto questioned his partners. Doesn't make me any difference which way we go. Tayuya shrugged in response. Just be careful of any traps. I know we're Uzumaki, and we were able to get in, but that doesn't mean that there may not have been anything set up for any intruder that somehow got in. The blonde nodded in response. He then led his cousin straight down the corridor to the right. As they approached the wooden door at the end, they noticed the Uzumaki clan symbol directly above the door in red. Once they arrived, Naruto pushed open the door, and the trio entered the room. Whoa. Naruto, Tayuya, and Karin mumbled. The room was wide, open, and completely intact. None of the bricks seemed out of place on the wall, and appeared as if nothing had happened to it in contrast to the rest of the village. There wasn't a single window in the room. A few ceiling tags on the walls generated the light that illuminated the room for the trio to see the room. On the walls and ceiling of the room, however, was what really gathered the attention of the Uzumaki cousins, a genealogy. At the top of the ceiling was the name Rikudo Sennin. Drawn down from that name in a red line were two clan names, Senju and Uchiha. Another line was drawn from the Senju and created a new name, Uzumaki. From the Uzumaki name, the lines moved off the ceiling and onto the four walls. Various names of Uzumaki clan members were written. It showed the names of who they married, who their children were, and who their children had children with. Underneath their names, in addition, were a date of birth and a date of death for nearly every Uzumaki. Only a handful names did not contain that information next to them. This was our clan? Naruto questioned. Is this every Uzumaki in the village? Whoever the leader of the village was must have had to keep this up to date. Tayuya mumbled as her eyes moved from name to name. They were wide in surprise as she tried to process everything. This is incredible. Almost immediately, an idea entered Naruto's head. He quickly looked through the various names on the wall, looking for one in particular. It took him nearly a minute before he found the name, Uzumaki Kushina. Mom. Naruto spoke quietly as he rubbed his hand on her name. He knew this wasn't her grave, but it was still the closest place he had ever felt to her. His eyes immediately started to water. This was your home, huh? The blonde's eyes wandered up and noticed the names of Uzumaki Sanpei and Uzumaki Junko connected to his mother's name. So, these must have been my grandparents then. Tayuya and Karin went over to Naruto's side to see his own mother's place on the genealogy. Tayuya's eyes started to wander after taking a peek. They then widened exponentially at two nearby names. Wait, are you kidding me? She gasped as she pointed to the names. Those are my parents. Naruto and Karin both turned their attention towards Tayuya's finger. She was pointing to the names of Uzumaki Arashir and Uzumaki Yami. The chart didn't show that they had a child, but it did show that they were married together. It also showed a line that connected Uzumaki Arashi's father with Uzumaki Junko, a line that revealed that Naruto's grandfather and Tayuya's grandmother were siblings. My mom and your dad were first cousins. Naruto exclaimed. You're shitting me. Tayuya actually managed to chuckle to herself. I guess we are literally cousins after all, Naruto. That's incredible. Naruto brushed away the tears from finding Kushina's name, and looked at Tayuya with a broad grin on his face. Guess I really can call you Tayuya-ne. Heh. I suppose it's still fitting. Tayuya returned his grin with a smirk of her own. But don't expect me to start calling you Ototo. I'm not doing any of that shit. He. Karin giggled to herself. I'm glad you two found out about your connection. That's really coincidental. You're telling me. Tayuya exclaimed excitedly as she turned to face the other Uzumaki. Did you look for your parents' names? Immediately, Karin's face fell slightly. I grew up in an orphanage and was told I was an Uzumaki. I honestly don't know the name of my mother or father. Naruto and Tayuya remained silent for a moment. The blonde Uzumaki, in particular, sympathized with her, knowing the pain of not knowing who your parents were. He opened his mouth to console his cousin, but the Kusa-genin shook her head for a moment and smiled. But I'm certain their names are on this wall somewhere, and that's all the comfort I need. She said proudly. They're here somewhere. They are. Damn straight they are. Tayuya nodded in agreement. And who knows? Maybe we'll find out some clue about who your parents were in this place after all. Maybe. Karin nodded in agreement. The group remained in the room for a moment longer, still reading the names on the wall. After 30 minutes passed, the group decided to leave the room and continue their exploration of the building. As the trio left the room, they were seemingly unaware of the mole that peeked its head out of a tile on the ground. Masakado mumbled to himself as he finished a stroke with his pen. The red-haired man looked deeply at the seal he had finished working on. He placed it on the ground and began running through hand signs. For the love of God, work this time. He grumbled to himself as he started to make hand signs. Fuinjutsu, reversal dash. Masakado-sama. Koropo jumped out of a hole in the ground directly in front of Masakado and his seal. The surprise entrance started the Uzumaki, causing him to fall backwards in surprise. This caused him to finish the Fuinjutsu with the incorrect hand signs, causing the seal to fail. It immediately lit itself on fire. Arg! Masakado hissed as he pulled himself on the ground. He looked up just in time to see the seal burn away. Wait! No. Come on! The red-haired man rushed over quickly to put out the fire. It was too late, however, and the seal turned into a pile of ash. Masakado looked intently at the ashes for a few moments in silence before he shook his head. Fucking hell! That seal was perfect! He shouted in frustration. He then turned angrily towards the mole that had startled him. What the fuck, Koropo? You know how important this seal that I'm working on is to me. Please, for the love of everything holy, don't interrupt me when I'm in the middle of experimentation. God damn it. Forgive me, Masakado-sama, but I believe you would like to know that of the 4 shinobi that had entered Yuzushi-Ogakure, 3 of them have stepped foot in the temple. Koropo informed the man calmly, seemingly ignoring the man's anger. Masakado's anger faded immediately and turned into pure shock. So, they do have the blood of Uzumaki. He mumbled to himself. A few seconds passed by before his eyes started to see red. His grip on the pen in his hands tightened. The descendants of traitors have finally come to see how the village they fled from is doing. How absolutely insulting. Masakado immediately pulled himself up to his feet. He reached his right hand into the left sleeve of his jacket and pulled out a scroll. I'll be waiting here for them. I'll let them explore the rest of the temple. Let them see more of their people, the people they let die. Masakado hissed to himself. He then turned to face the mole standing next to him. Koropo, you said that only 3 of the 4 shinobi entered? The 4th one must not have Uzumaki blood, but he is still variable that may need to be dealt with. Dispose of him. I can do that. The mole nodded his head. However, I must ask you, are you sure about this, Masakado-sama? You haven't fought in decades and your physical strength has weakened. You've grown a lot older. Do you think you'll be capable to handle 3 of them at once? Masakado shook his head, dismissing the mole's concern. He made a hand sign, causing the scroll in his hands to release a cloud of smoke. When the smoke disappeared, the scroll was replaced with a bronze shield marked with the Uzumaki clan symbol on it. I wouldn't worry about my condition. Even in age, I'm still one of the greatest Fuinjutsu masters the Uzumaki clan has produced. I'm more than capable to kill any punks that step foot in this room. As you say, Masakado-sama. Koropo nodded his head in understanding. I will return here once the other shinobi has been eliminated. With those words, Koropo proceeded to return through the hole he had come in from. Masakado was now left alone in the room. And now, I wait. Masakado stated as he took out his pen. He moved it towards his shield and began slowly drawing an ornate seal on the shield around the Uzumaki clan symbol. When he finished, he used a piece of rope to tie the shield to his back. He then began to walk around the room as he pulled out seals from his jacket sleeves. Take your time, traitors. The second you all walk through the door to this room, you're all dead. Naruto, Tayuya, and Karin quickly opened the door at the end of the other available corridor by the entrance. They then entered a new, large room with a lot more complexity, and a lot more destruction. The room was large and open with 10 wooden doors along the walls of the room with equal distance between each of them. Along the walls were various different Fuinjutsu seals and symbols. The ceiling to the room was destroyed in the invasion, causing sunlight to fall into the room and illuminate more than any of the other previous rooms. At the very center of the room was a large, circular base. The base was surrounded by large pieces of marble. That must have been part of a pretty big statue. Naruto commented with a whistle as he examined one of the pieces. The piece alone was bigger than his body. Wonder what it was when it was still standing. Karin walked over to the base and noticed an inscription written on it. She quickly adjusted her glasses and read it. Our holy ancestor, the man who created ninjutsu, the Rikudo Sannin. Did our clan actually believe in the myth of the Rikudo Sannin? Tayuya questioned with a sigh. It seems as if the people here worshipped him like a god or something. I don't know. Naruto shrugged. He then rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. I actually don't know much about the myth. I just know the name Rikudo Sannin. It's not worth looking into. It's a bunch of bullshit if you ask me. She replied with a snort. Anyway, let's keep looking around here. Tayuya went to the first door she could find in the room and opened it. She walked inside and entered a long, narrow hallway with scrolls sticking out of the wall. The red-haired girl pulled out one of the scrolls and read the title. Uzumaki Fuinjutsu, Whirlpool Devastation. She read. Her eyes then widened as realization dawned on her. Naruto, Karin, I think I found a library of jutsu. Her cousins quickly rushed over to her side and entered the room. They then pulled out more scrolls and started to read the titles. Yeah, this is a jutsu library all right. Wow. Naruto looked absolutely giddy as his eyes wandered from scroll to scroll. I don't think I've ever seen this many jutsu scrolls in one place. Bigger than anything Kusa had. Karin commented in disbelief as she pulled out another scroll. Orochimaru would have pissed himself if he saw this place. A collection like this would be like a wet dream for him. Thank fuck he didn't know about the stuff here. Tayuya snickered to herself. It seems like everything in here is Fuinjutsu. Naruto commented after looking at his fifth scroll in a row. I'm willing to bet there's some other stuff here too, but yeah, most of it is probably Fuinjutsu. Tayuya replied. It's what our clan was famous for, after all. They could span the art in a way that nobody else could. There were even rumors that the Uzumaki had a bloodline that gave them a predisposition to Fuinjutsu. Karin added. Naruto nodded his head in understanding at the words of his cousins. He then pulled out another scroll and looked at its title. Uzumaki Fuinjutsu, Hurricane Manifestation. This is what the Uzumaki were known for. This was the style of jutsus my mom used. Naruto rationalized in his head. I need to talk to Ero Sennin when we leave this place. Once I get the Rasengan down, I need to ask him to help me get started with Fuinjutsu. Anyway guys. We should probably keep looking around. Karin suggested as she walked over to the entrance. We can come back here after we explore the rest of the place. Tayuya nodded her head and followed Karin out of the room. Naruto remained motionless, still thinking about his plans to learn Fuinjutsu. Oi, Naruto. You good? Tayuya called out to him. You're technically the leader, you know? We can't leave without you. Tayuya's words pulled Naruto out of his thoughts. He nodded his head and quickly stuffed the Hurricane Manifestation scroll into his backpack before rushing over to his cousins. Yeah, let's keep moving. He agreed as he left the room. The Uzumaki cousins then moved on to the next room in the temple. What's in here? Naruto mumbled to himself as he opened a door. After checking 3 more doors and being greeted with empty, destroyed rooms, Naruto, Tayuya, and Karin opened a 5th door and were greeted with the sight of a small circular room. The room had a wooden floor that was painted red that had the image of the Uzumaki clan symbol along the floor. The walls were covered with red bricks that matched the color of the room. There was also a wooden desk in the center of the room that was surprisingly not destroyed. The desk, however, was covered in dust and looked as if it had not been touched since the invasion. The room had 2 pictures along the wall behind the desk. One was a picture of an elderly woman with long, light red hair that had ceiling tags sticking out of her hair. The other picture was of an elderly man that was bald. Both pictures depicted these people wearing the same outfit, purple robes that resembled the robes of the Hokage with a matching purple hat with the Uzushiogakure spiral symbol on it. The phrases Uzumaki Rei, Shodain Yuzukage and Uzumaki Kanji, Nidain Yuzukage were printed in gold underneath the pictures. Yuzukage? Naruto repeated the phrase in surprise. This building I think also doubled as the general government building for Uzushiogakure. This must have been the office for the leader. Tayuya commented as she walked forward to examine the pictures. Karin and Naruto followed behind and examined the pictures in closer detail. As they approached the area closer, Karin noticed something on the wall nearby the picture of the Nidain Yuzukage. A brick was sticking out. She mumbled to herself as she went over and gripped the brick tightly. She then pulled on it, taking the brick out of the wall, revealing a hole. Ah! Karin quickly reached inside the hole to see what was inside. She then pulled out a scroll. "Guys, look at this!" She called out to her cousins. Naruto and Tayuya, who had been busy examining the portraits of the leaders of Uzushiogakure, turned their attention to Karin. The Kusa shinobi quickly blew dust off the scroll as she unraveled it. Unlike the scrolls they found in the library, this one contained writing. At first glance, it appeared to a report of some sorts. "Do you think there's any more in here?" Tayuya questioned as she examined. "You two check the walls. I can read the scroll out loud to you both," Karin suggested. Naruto and Tayuya nodded in approval as they quickly moved to the walls, looking for loose bricks. As they started to look, Karin began to read the letter out loud. Log 14. Only 14 of these in my lifetime since I received the title of Yuzukage. I suppose I should have written more of these to keep as records, but I'm not much of a writer. My previous logs should suggest that. Regardless, I am writing here to get my last thoughts written down before tomorrow, the day that I will most likely die. I have received reports from some of our spies that Kumogakure is planning an invasion on our village. This plan has been apparently underway for the past year. Now, the village's army is approaching and is being led by the Raikage himself. According to what I have heard, they should be here by tomorrow. I have called back all shinobi that were on missions and plan on leading the defense myself. I will be the village's shield and do my role to keep the village safe. I will most likely have direct combat with the Raikage. From all that I heard of him, he may have the skills needed to kill me. I am now an old man and much weaker than I was years ago. Still, I know I have enough strength in me to take him down with me. I know that much of myself. Thankfully, I have already chosen my successor. Even better, he is the greatest seal master Uzushiogakure has produced. At this very moment, he is currently working on perfecting a seal to keep all non-Uzushiogakure shinobi out of the village and thinks that he may be finished by tomorrow. If he can achieve this, then we can actually avoid this battle altogether. I consider myself a realist and, therefore, will not allow myself to rely on his seal to be made. Having said that, if there is one man I trust is able to create such a seal, it is him. Regardless, I am prepared to die tomorrow. I will do what I can to keep Uzushiogakure alive and my people protected. Long live Uzushiogakure. After tomorrow, whether I live or die, my successor take over once this conflict with Kumo is over. May the village's reign be even grander under the rule of the Sandaime Yuzukage. Uzumaki Kanji Nidaime Yuzukage. And there it ends. Karin concluded the scroll. Naruto and Tayuya looked downward at the words. They did not know anything about Uzumaki Kanji beforehand, but hearing his words on the scroll brought sadness to their hearts. The man died the day after he finished writing that scroll, and the village that he was going to sacrifice himself for would die with him. He was certainly unaware that it wasn't just Kumogakure that invaded Uzushigakure that day, it was also Kirigakure and Iwagakure. The three villages came together to completely destroy the village and the Uzumaki clan. He had no knowledge of any of this. It's a shame that successor of his wasn't able to finish that seal. Naruto finally spoke up. It is. But that's history. That's how things happen. Tayuya mumbled in response. Did you guys find any other scrolls? This one did suggest that the Nidaime wrote more, and maybe even the Shodaime has some written. We checked, yeah, but we couldn't find any bricks. If there were other scrolls, they're gone now. Naruto replied with a frown. Karin closed the scroll after hearing Naruto's words. She then gave the scroll a curious look as she returned it to its hole in the wall. If the other scrolls in the office were destroyed, why wasn't this one? After putting away the scroll, the group finished their work in the room. They then walked out, heading towards their next destination. As the Uzumaki cousins investigated the temple, Jiraiya was left alone in the destroyed village. The sight of the destruction and the thought of all the lives that had been lost was a depressing thought, especially to a man like Jiraiya, who wanted more than anything to find a way to create peace around the globe. He needed something to get his mind off the depressing thoughts of being in Uzushigakure. Therefore, to focus on something else, Jiraiya sat down on the ground, pulled out a notebook and pen, and started to write his next book in the Ika series. The Sannin blushed as he put his thoughts onto paper. Oh, this one is going to be good. This one is going to be my best-selling work yet. Take that, Rashi. The man continued to write to pass the time while waiting for the Uzumaki cousins. He seemed as if he wasn't paying attention to anything else around. Just as he was finished with the first 4 pages of the book, he started to hear something. What? He mumbled to himself as he quickly put the book away and stood up. The sound was faint, but he could definitely hear something. The sound was also gradually becoming louder. Jiraiya continued to wonder himself what was creating the noise when the ground underneath him started to fall apart. Fuck. He cursed to himself as he jumped. The Sannin managed to move fast enough in time to avoid falling into the hole. He then immediately landed on another segment of ground. The ground underneath his feet, once again, began to falling apart. This time, Jiraiya jumped directly above it as the ground fell apart, creating a hole. He made a series of hand signs and brought his hands to his face, causing him to spit out oil into the hole. He then quickly ran through another set of hand signs. Fire style, toad oil flame bullet. The fire made contact with the oil in the hole, igniting it and creating a conflagration underneath the earth. As a result, Koropo jumped out of the hole and landed on the ground. Jiraiya landed on the ground directly across from the large mole. As summoning animal? The Sannin questioned. Who are you? And where is your summoner? My name is Koropo, and I wouldn't concern yourself with my summoner. Koropo shook his head. I've been ordered to dispose of you. I'd suggest leaving the area immediately, before I kill you. The mole spoke the threat with such a nonchalant, calm tone of voice that it almost took Jiraiya by surprise. There was no tension or emotion whatsoever in his words. It was a disturbing revelation to the Toad Sage. Regardless, Jiraiya shook his head and ignored the feeling as he glared at the mole in front of him. You and your summoner must feel rather confident if you think that you alone can take me. He replied as he bit his finger. Summoning jutsu. Jiraiya immediately slammed his hand down, generating a poof of smoke. When the smoke cleared, the toad boss, Gamabunta, appeared. The toad stood directly in front of Jiraiya. "Jiraiya, you just summoned me a few weeks ago against Manda. What the hell do you need me for now?" Gamabunta's rant died on his tongue, as he noticed the mole of nearly equal standing across from him. The toad's eyes widened. "Well, I'll be damned. It's been a while since I've seen a mole." "That you, Koropu?" "Indeed, it is." Koropu nodded his head. The mole's eyes were narrowed in deep thought as he studied Gamabunta. "So, he summons toads. Clearly, this is Jiraiya from Konoha. This could be problematic." The mole then proceeded to shake his head. "It doesn't matter. Masakado-sama ordered his removal, so that's what I will do. It only means I will have to work harder to do my task. Feels weird to see you on the battlefield again. I really thought your moles were only summoned by Yuzushiogakure shinobi." Gamabunta commented as he reached for the dagger at his side. "You all prided yourself on your loyalty, and how it went with you to the grave. I really thought you would not dare let another shinobi sign your contract once Yuzushiogakure went down." For the first time, Koropu's face lit with emotion, anger. He glared at the toad boss and seemed prepared to charge. "Do not doubt the loyalty of the moles, Gamabunta-san. Masakado-sama is still alive and I, along with my kin, will remain loyal to him until the end of time." Jiraiya's eyes widened in horror at the name of Koropu's summoner. Sweat started to roll down his face, and he could feel a lump develop on the back of his throat. "Masakado, as in Uzumaki Masakado. He's still alive?" The Sannin realized. That is correct, but he is currently involved with the 3 Uzumaki in the temple. He is no concern to you," Koropu informed him sharply. "I am your only concern at this moment. If Masakado's in the temple and against us, then that means..." Another wave of horror washed over Jiraiya's face as he quickly turned his head towards the entrance to the temple. "Shit. I need to get in there fast before he kills them. Earth-style, rock bullets." With Jiraiya's back turned, Koropu dug his claws into the ground and brought them upward. Immediately, large clumps of the earth were flung directly towards Jiraiya. The toad Sannin turned his head just in time to see the incoming attack. Before he could react, however, Gamabunta pulled out his dagger and proceeded to cut the rocks into tiny pieces. "Jiraiya, I don't know what you're thinking about right now, but this mole should be your only concern right now," Gamabunta advised. The Sannin sighed to himself as he jumped onto Gamabunta's head. He knew the toad boss was right. However, that wasn't stopping him from being worried. "Naruto, Taiyuya, Karin, stay safe. I'll find somewhere in there as soon as I'm done with this mole." With that thought, Jiraiya managed to push his worries to the side. He then prepared himself for a fight with Koropu. Only 2 more rooms left, Taiyuya noted absent-mindedly. Naruto didn't say anything as he opened up the second-to-last room available to them. He then entered a room that looked entirely bare and dark. There were no windows or seals to illuminate the room. A small hole in the ceiling was the only source of light. Rubble and bricks were lying on the ground, suggesting that whatever was present in the room was no longer in existence. "There's nothing in here," Naruto commented. We don't know that yet," Karin responded. "Let's do some examination." With those words, Taiyuya and Karin entered the room behind Naruto. Once they entered the room, a seal tag above the door was activated. A brick wall then developed in the doorway, sealing the exit. "Ha!" Taiyuya gasped at the sight of the sudden brick wall. "What the hell happened?" Naruto questioned loudly. He started making hand signs, preparing for a jutsu that could blow down the wall. "Enjoy the tour of the Yuzushiogakure temple, traitors?" The 3 Uzumaki cousins quickly turned their heads towards the sound of the voice. From the shadows of the rooms, Masakado stepped out and revealed himself. The man had a scowl on his face as he studied each of the three Uzumaki in front of him. "You three look so very young," he hissed quietly as he approached them. "You must be part of the newest generation of shinobi. How fortunate that you all were able to be born. It's a shame that the Uzumaki who stayed loyal to Yuzushiogakure weren't able to live to your generation." What the hell are you rambling about?" Taiyuya demanded. "Who are you? Are you an Uzumaki?" Naruto questioned. He then shook his head. I don't know what you are talking about. If you're an Uzumaki, then we are family. We didn't betray anybody." "Bullshit!" Masakado yelled. "Our village needed every helping hand to withstand the invasion of Kumo, Kiri, and Iwa. All shinobi, regardless of rank and mission, were called back to keep the village safe. Your parents decided to take the coward's way out and not come back. Maybe with just a few seal masters, we could have survived. We could have had more minds working on barrier and protective seals. We could have had something." "Yes, sir," Karin mumbled to herself in fear. The man standing in front of them was starting to really scare her. Every word he spoke was filled with so much hate and anger. He was emitting killing intent with every fiber of his being. "We didn't do anything. Why Yuri not making sense?" I'm not making sense. Am I not thinking logically to you?" Masakado snarled. "No, you aren't." Taiyuya hissed bluntly. "I don't know about Naruto's and Karin's parents, but I listened to my parents talk about the invasion. They did not betray or leave the village when it needed them. They were not fucking traitors. How dare you insinuate such bullshit? How dare you lie to me about facts?" The man yelled back in response. Who are you?" Naruto questioned. "I am Uzumaki Masakado, the chosen apprentice and successor to Uzumaki Kanji. I am the Sandaime Yuzukage of the ruined village of Yuzushiogakure." The man shouted angrily as he gripped the pen in his hands tightly. "And as Yuzukage, I declare the three of you, the children of traitors, guilty of treason yourself. I sentence the three of you to your own personal executions." With those words, Masakado charged directly towards the three cousins. Chapter 38, Masakado's Rage. I am Uzumaki Masakado, the chosen apprentice and successor to Uzumaki Kanji. I am the Sandaime Yuzukage of the ruined village of Yuzushiogakure. The man shouted angrily as he gripped the pen in his hands tightly. "And as Yuzukage, I declare the three of you, the children of traitors, guilty of treason yourself. I sentence the three of you to your own personal executions." With those words, Masakado charged directly towards the three cousins. Earth Style, Stone Fist Jutsu. Without making a single hand sign, Masakado's right hand became completely encased in stone. The stone hand grew in size, matching the size of his own body. He continued to rush forward at Naruto, Taiyuya, and Karin, attempting to land a punch with his stone fist. The three Uzumaki cousins managed to jump away just in time and slide back, placing distance between them and the elder Uzumaki. Taiyuya took this moment to pull out her flute while Naruto and Karin pulled out kunai knives. "Why are you attacking us?" Naruto demanded. "We're family. What have we done to you?" Ignoring his questions, Masakado quickly released his jutsu, returning his hand to normal. He then reached into the sleeve of his jacket, pulling out a kunai with an explosive tag on it. The tag's seal, however, had in addition made it an infinity marker around the center. He then tossed the kunai with the tag towards the trio. Naruto, Taiyuya, and Karin, once again, jumped out of the way, and the kunai made direct contact with the ground. Masakado then made a singular hand sign. Fuinjutsu, continuous explosion. Instantly, the explosive tag began to tear itself apart into 50 smaller pieces. These pieces floated in the air and proceeded to fly directly at the three Uzumaki cousins. Their eyes widened in fright. Tayuya and Karin were about to jump away from the papers, but Naruto reacted first and began rushing through a series of hand signs. Wind style, great breakthrough. The blonde Uzumaki quickly breathed out a large gust of wind just before the pieces of paper would have reached the trio. The papers, upon making contact with the wind, simultaneously blew up, creating 50 large explosions in the air. The resulting explosions started to cause parts of the ceiling of the room to fall down, creating more sunlight and illuminating the battlefield more. Parts of the ceiling directly above Naruto, Tayuya, and Karin started to fall apart as well, causing the trio to have to jump away to avoid being hit by debris. As they landed on the ground, however, they were met by Masakado. The man's right hand was, once again, completely encased in stone that rivaled the size of his body. He delivered a punch that managed to hit all three shinobi at once. The trio was sent flying headfirst into a wall and, after making contact, hit the ground with a loud thump. Each of them winced in pain at the impact as they struggled to get up, barely holding onto their weapons. Heh! Quite the unfortunate spot in the room for them to land. Masakado smirked to himself as he noticed what wall they hit. Their resulting collision with the wall revealed a seal that was buried within it. With a singular hand sign, Masakado triggered the seal on the wall, Uzumaki Fuinjutsu, Hurricane Manifestation. As Naruto, Tayuya, and Karin managed to pull themselves off the ground, they were greeted with the sight of the seal glowing a green color. Their eyes widened, once again, as they quickly jumped out of the way of the seal. Almost instantaneously, a giant tornado-like windstorm developed directly in front of the trio. They managed to avoid getting hit by the full force of the storm. The edge of the wind still managed to cut into their arms, however. Karin screamed in pain while Naruto and Tayuya winced, trying to resist screaming as well. Each of them were bleeding heavily. Masakado then began charging at the trio, his fist encased in stone once again. Pull yourself together, Tayuya. If this continues at the rate it's going, we're all going to be fucking dead. Tayuya mentally scolded herself. She then brought her flute to her lips and played a note as quickly as possible. Demonic flute, phantom sound chains. Upon hearing the note from her flute, Masakado stopped charging and the stone around his right hand collapsed. He became motionless as a far-out look appeared in his eyes. In his mind, he felt his body become fastened to sturdy ropes. He was also bombarded with images of his skin melting in front of him. Alright, that'll buy us some time. He'll probably break out of that genjutsu fast, so let's hurry up and get ready for him. Tayuya informed her cousins. She brought her index finger to the part of her bleeding arm and coated it in her blood. She then made a series of hand signs before slamming her palm onto the ground. Summoning jutsu. A poof of smoke filled the area. Once the smoke cleared, three large, muscular creatures appeared directly in front of her. Each of them had a few unique characteristics but shared some demonic features. One wore a dark green bodysuit with hair that covered its entire face and carried a club. A second one was bald and shirtless that wore a headband that covered its eyes and ears. It had a thorn-like weapon attached to its hand that resembled claws. The third was a creature that had its entire body covered in bandages with no arms. All three creatures remained motionless and appeared lifeless. Tayuyane. What the hell kind of summoning technique is that? Naruto managed to ask. He looked disturbed as he stared at the creatures. Can we do this later? Right now's not the time to start talking about our jutsu. Tayuya chided him. For what it's worth, those creatures are called doki. You can look them up when you have some spare time in Konoha. Kurama commented within Naruto's head. Kyubi? You're here? Wait, of course you're here. You're always here. Naruto shook his head. Anyway, if you heard that, you know what kind of trouble I'm in. I need some chakra and fast to help with this fight. At least enough to maybe summon one of the stronger toads. I don't know why you bothered to ask. Thanks to Kokuo's container, you know how to take chakra from me. The fox rolled his eyes in response. Before Naruto could respond, the fox then started to release chakra, causing the blonde's body to be encased in red chakra. This should be enough for now. Surely you can summon an acceptable toad with that. I can. Thanks. Naruto responded aloud with a smirk. He, like Taiyuya, swiped his index finger against the cuts on his arm to obtain a blood sample. He then made a series of hand signs and slammed his palm on the ground. Summoning jutsu. A large magenta-colored toad with black markings on his body appeared directly in front of Naruto. The toad wore a black kimono with a white sash and had mesh armor underneath. It wore a shield tied around its back and had a Susumata in his hand. After being summoned, the toad quickly turned his head and faced Naruto. Are you the new toad summoner that Jiraiya talked about? He questioned. You bet I am. The name's Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto introduced himself. Not to cut the introduction short, but I'm going to need help. The toad looked away momentarily towards Masakado. He nodded in understanding. My name's Gamaken. I'm a little bit clumsy, but I'll do what I can to help. He replied modestly. Any help is appreciated. The blonde commented cheerfully. Guys. Karin mumbled. Her eyes were focused solely on the other Uzumaki in the room. He's getting out of the genjutsu. As if on cue, Masakado broke himself out of the genjutsu. The shinobi shook his head angrily. Fucking genjutsu. He cursed to himself. Now that he was free from the technique, he looked around the battlefield and noticed Naruto's and Taiyuya's summons. His eyes narrowed immediately. So we got a couple of summoners here, huh? You're outnumbered. Badly. Naruto spoke up as frown developed on his face. Come on, just let us talk to you for a little bit. We can avoid this fight. We don't mean any harm. I don't care what you all have to say. Masakado hissed in response. Karin stiffened at his words. As a chakra sensor capable of discerning emotions from fluctuations of chakra in a person's body, she could sense the emotions of the people around her in detail. Masakado, at this moment, was radiating nothing but rage. She had never experienced meeting a person capable of feeling such anger. It's consuming all of his rational thought. There's no way he's capable of rational thought. She realized. We won't be able to talk him out of anything. He's going to come after us until he dies. If you don't care what we have to say, then fine. We'll beat some fucking sense into you. Taiyuya retaliated. I'd like to see you try. Masakado taunted. Taiyuya immediately blew a note on her flute, signaling the 3 Doki summons to charge forward Masakado. The elder Uzumaki's right hand went to his back and pulled off the bronze shield attached to it. He then gripped it tightly in his hand as he prepared for the first strike of the Doki. Hiya! Gamabunta and Koropu engaged each other in direct combat with each other. Gamabunta's dagger made direct contact with Koropu's sharpened claws, blocking each other's attacks. Koropu proceeded to try and swipe at Gamabunta once again with the claws on his other paw, but Gamabunta jumped out of the way into the air. Water style, gunshot. Earth style, rock bullets. Gamabunta unleashed a barrage of massive bullets of water. Koropu, in response, dug his claws into the ground and flung large chunks of earth upward. The 2 jutsus collided with each other, causing water and rock to fall to the ground and canceling out the other attack. The 2 summoned animals continued with their jutsus, trying to land one of their attacks on the other. Jiraiya, while Gamabunta was distracting Koropu, moved around the battlefield stealthily to behind the giant mole. Fire style, flame bullet. The Sannin breathed out a massive fireball launched directly at the mole's back. Koropo managed to notice the attack however, and proceeded to dive underground to avoid the attack, creating a hole. Jiraiya quickly rushed over to the hole, making hand signs. Gamabunta moved to the hole as well. Oil was starting to spill out of the toad boss's mouth. Gamabunta had the same idea as I did, it seems. Seems like he got even more oil than I had intended for. Jiraiya commented as he prepared for another oil-fire hybrid. Fire style dash. Earth style, Fisher. Before Jiraiya or Gamabunta could react, the ground beneath their feet caved in completely. Both proceeded to fall down within the earth amongst the debris of the jutsu. The Sannin and Toad boss managed to find large chunks of debris to land on and proceeded to jump upwards to avoid falling down further. Just as they landed back on solid, stable ground however, a paw emerged from under the ground and grabbed Jiraiya's leg. Fuck dash. Before Jiraiya could react, he was pulled back underground. He was then dragged downward as Koropo continued to tunnel further downwards into the earth. The mole's claws were deep within Jiraiya's leg. Furthermore, with each second as he was dragged underground, his face and body collided with various rock and stone that Koropo intentionally hit him against. The Sannin was starting to extensively bleed all over his body. Can't let this continue much longer. Must change the battlefield. Jiraiya realized as he ran through hand signs, ignoring the sharp pain at all points of his body. Earth style, swamp of the underworld. Upon completion of the jutsu, the ground that Koropo was moving through began to change shape. The mole let go of Jiraiya's leg and was forced upward as the ground turned to a liquid that rose up in the ground. Now free, Jiraiya jumped upwards as well. Both he and the mole managed to return above ground and were greeted with a new terrain, a muddy swamp. Quite the interesting technique, I must say. Koropo commented as the mole tried to move its body. His legs, however, seemed to be stuck to the mud of the swamp. Quite interesting indeed. One of my favorites. Jiraiya replied, breathing heavily. That mole is ruthless. I need to be more careful. I'm at their mercy in this swamp. I need to break free, Koropo noted to himself. He brought his paws together, causing his claws on each paw to collide with each other. Let's see if this jutsu can withstand this. Seeing that Koropo was attempting something, Gamabunta proceeded to jump towards the mole. He raised his dagger and prepared to cut directly at the mole. Just as he was starting his descent onto Koropo, the mole dug his claws deep within the mud of the swamp. Earth style, drill run. Gamabunta landed before Koropo finished his technique and delivered a cut deep within the mole's back. Koropo winced in pain, but seemed to ignore the pain to continue with his technique. His claws moved at a rapid speed in a circular motion that managed to pierce through the mud of the swamp. Immediately, Koropo dived headfirst into the hole, using the force of his technique to pull his legs out of the swamp. He broke free? Jiraiya shook his head in frustration. Koropo proceeded to keep digging underground, having his claws reach the surface. The claws proceeded to dig through the mud, mixing it with the natural dirt underground. In a matter of seconds, the mole had completely filled the swamp up with dirt as if the mud had never been there. I've never seen someone do that to the swamp. That's rather genius. Jiraiya mentally praised Koropo's idea. The Sannin proceeded to jump towards Gamabunta's head. Almost immediately after, Koropo emerged from the ground exactly where Jiraiya was previously standing with his claws extended forward. At the rate he was moving and with his claws as sharp as they are, that would have pierced me. Jiraiya commented with a sigh. He had avoided a potentially fatal injury. The moles are dangerous summons, Jiraiya. Especially this one. Gamabunta informed him. You should stay on my head for the rest of this battle. Fighting him on the ground is to your disadvantage. Yeah, I can see. The Sannin admitted. Still, we have to finish this battle as quick as possible. We need to find some way into that temple to help out Naruto and the others. Gamabunta did not give a verbal response to his summoner. Instead, he strengthened his grip on his dagger once again, and prepared for his next attack in their battle against Koropo. Uzumaki Fuinjutsu, impenetrable defense. With a singular stroke of his pen onto his bronze shield, Masakado created 4 large golden shields of pure chakra that surrounded his body. The 3 doki struck at the man, but their attacks did not scratch the shields that protected him. What the? Taiyuya's eyes widened, seeing her summons not do any damage to their target. Is that all? Heh. You brats aren't in my league. Masakado taunted as he made another stroke with his pen on the shield in his right hand. Uzumaki Fuinjutsu, unstoppable offense. Instantaneously, the 4 golden shields of chakra changed shape to form 4 sharp golden spears. The spears impaled the 3 doki, sending them flying backwards into the wall with a large crash. 3 of the spears remained impaled in the doki, keeping them from moving away. Masakado then charged forward at Taiyuya, the 4th golden spear remaining by his side. Damn it. Taiyuya grumbled as she started to plait a different note, the note she used in her genjutsu. To her surprise, however, her technique didn't slow down Masakado, and he continued to charge her. The girl quickly jumped out of the way, barely avoiding being impaled by the golden spear. Nice try, traitor, but you hit me with the same genjutsu twice. The Sandaime Yuzukage continued to taunt. He was about to charge her again, but was stopped as Gamaken proceeded to strike at him with his Susumata. With a quick stroke of his brush, Masakado quickly changed the shape of his spear back into a shield and blocked the attack. He then made a gesture with the shield in his right hand, causing the golden shield to push back against the Susumata in an attempt to knock Gamaken over. The toad, however, retaliated by pushing back himself. Gamaken managed to push past the shield, moving it backwards into Masakado and sending him to the ground. The shield dispersed immediately. Naruto, seeing an opportunity, made a singular hand sign. Shadow Clone Jutsu. After a poof of smoke filled the area, 50 clones of Naruto appeared. Each of the clones ran towards the elder Uzumaki. Masakado, upon pulling himself off the ground, was greeted with a punch to the face by one of Naruto's clones, knocking him further backwards. A second clone attempted to land another punch, but the elder Uzumaki managed to fully recover and block the attack with the shield on his right hand. He then quickly drew another line on his bronze shield, recreating the golden spear. The spear moved quickly around in a circular pattern, skewering every Naruto clone around him. In a single second, the 50 clones were dispersed. How did I let that toad knock me off balance? How did that blonde traitor even land a single hit on me? Masakado questioned to himself. Koropo was right. I am getting old. Much too old. And it's been way too long since I last fought anybody. A lot of my natural strength and senses have drastically weakened. Taiyuya, noticing an opening, proceeded to blow another note on her flute, directing her 3 doki summons to attack. Despite the fact that they were still impaled against the wall and unable to move, the 3 doki opened their mouths, releasing a worm-like creature with many mouths composed entirely of spiritual energy. The 3 worms flew through the air directly towards Masakado. What? Masakado gasped at the sight of the technique. Immediately, Masakado created a stroke with his pen against his shield, transforming the golden spear of chakra into a shield once again. The shield blocked the approaching worm-like creatures, but they continued to move and crawl past the shield towards Masakado. The Sandaime Yuzukage cursed and was forced to jump backwards. One of the worms, however, managed to move fast and struck at him before he could move away. It bit him in the leg, absorbing some of his physical energy. Masakado's eyes closed as he winced in pain from the attack. TSK, those creatures aren't attacking my body. They're hunting my own energy. That's almost worse. The man growled. He put the pen in his left hand away, and proceeded to pull out a kunai with a seal tied to it. Those creatures need to be eliminated. The worm-like creatures flew towards Masakado once again. In response, the Sandaime Uzukage tossed the kunai directly at the 3 physical bodies of the doki that were still impaled on the wall. He then made a hand sign, causing the seal on the kunai to illuminate a green light. Uzumaki Fuin Jutsu, Hurricane Manifestation. Immediately, the seal released a powerful tornado-like windstorm that completely encircled the bodies of the doki. The wind cut deeply into the creatures, cutting off their body parts and destroying them piece by piece. Within seconds, the doki, completely destroyed, disappeared from existence. With the physical bodies gone, the worm-like creatures disappeared as well. That's better. Masakado's words died on his lips as he noticed Karin toss a kunai with an explosive tag directly at him. The Sandaime Uzukage proceeded to catch the kunai by its handle. He then quickly made a hand sign and tapped the seal of the explosive note. Karin made a hand sign to trigger the explosion, but no explosion resulted. Her eyes widened in response. How is that possible? She mumbled to herself. Immediately after, Gamekin jumped towards Masakado to strike him. The Sandaime Uzukage rolled out of the way his strike and proceeded to toss the kunai directly at the toad's back. Gamekin winced in pain. Masakado then made a hand sign, activating the seal. The resulting explosion sent Gamekin flying. The toad flew in the direction of Tayuya. She was unable to move in time, and was sent backwards with Gamekin. The two hit the wall hard. Irk. Gamekin grumbled to himself as he fell down hard. Ugh. Tayuya hissed in pain. She was slowly starting to feel her consciousness fade. Tayuya. Karin gasped as she rushed over to her cousin. She noticed the wounds on her cousin's body, and her fading consciousness immediately. Karin quickly positioned her arm directly against Tayuya's mouth. Bite me. Hum? The former Sound 4 member mumbled, still feeling dazed. She was slowly starting to close her eyes. You know what this can do. The life force within me can heal you, Karin stated sharply. She then forced Tayuya's mouth open, and caused her to bite down on her arm. Karin winced in pain, but didn't allow the girl to stop biting. Slowly, Tayuya's body started to regenerate as Karin's life force began to enter her body and heal her. Her wounds began to clear up slightly, and she felt her consciousness return. Masakado, who had been about to charge at the two, looked on in awe as he witnessed Karin's healing prowess. That's the healing capabilities of the Sandaime Uzukage. She has raised life force. Is she a direct descendant? He questioned in his head. But that should be impossible. She's the descendant of traders. There's no way that could be possible. She can't be one descended from the Sandaime. The Sandaime Uzukage was so wrapped up in his thoughts that he stopped paying attention to the battlefield. As a result, he didn't notice Naruto create 5 more clones. He also did not notice the blonde, along with his clones, approach him. The first clone delivered a punch directly to his face. 3 more of the clones proceeded to then kick him up into the air. U dash. Zu dash. Ma dash. Ki. The original Naruto jumped up into the air, directly above Masakado's body. The final clone remained on the ground, directly below Masakado and the original Naruto. The clone then started to make hand signs. Naruto. The original Naruto proceeded to kick Masakado downward in the face, directly towards the final clone. The clone had finished his hand signs and used the great breakthrough, releasing a massive gust of wind upwards and forcing Masakado's body upward back towards the original Naruto. Continuous barrage. Naruto proceeded to kick Masakado down once again. The clone creating the great breakthrough was now joined by the other 4 clones. Each clone released another massive gust of wind, keeping both Masakado and Naruto in the air. This created a seemingly endless loop as Naruto kept kicking Masakado downward and his clones kept forcing him back up to receive another kick by the original Naruto. Damn it, Masakado. Pull yourself together. With his mind clear and focused once again, Masakado, upon getting sent back into the air by Naruto's clones, reached out with his left hand and grabbed Naruto's leg just as he was about to kick him. He then tossed him downward, causing him to crash into his clones, dispelling them. Masakado landed on the ground, directly on top of Naruto's back. Naruto gasped in pain, causing him to cough out blood. The Sandaime Uzukage then proceeded to pull out from his sleeve a seal tag, one marked with the kanji for fire with an elaborate, precise design surrounding it. He slammed the tag onto Naruto's back, kicked him away, and proceeded to make a singular hand sign. Uzumaki Fuinjutsu, Inferno. The tag released a bright blue color, signaling that it was activated. As Naruto began pulling himself off the ground, the tag released a massive blue fire that started to slowly cover his body. Ah! He shouted in pain as he tried to put out the fire. His efforts, however, seemingly failed. Within seconds, Naruto succumbed to the pain and fell back to the ground. The fire began to travel further up his body, burning into his clothes and his skin. Karin had finished fully healing Taiyuya when Naruto started to scream in pain. The 2 Uzumaki cousins, along with Gameken, looked towards the blonde Uzumaki with fear in their eyes. Naruto! Karin shouted. No. Taiyuya yelled out. No. Gameken mumbled, shaking his head. I can't have failed him. Am I really that clumsy? And that's 1 down. 2 more traitors to go. Masakado told himself as he turned away from Naruto's body. You bastard. Taiyuya hissed. I'm going to kill you. Heh. Masakado let out a humorless snort as he walked towards the 2 cousins. You seem to understand my rage, understand my fury about your ancestors leaving me and the rest of the Uzumaki clan to face the invasion of Kumo, Iwa and Kiri alone. The village was destroyed because of your ancestors. They didn't betray anybody, damn it. Fuck you. Taiyuya hissed. If anything is to blame for Uzushiogakure being destroyed, it's you. Masakado immediately stopped walking forward as his eyes widened at the statement. He didn't say anything in response, prompting Taiyuya to continue with her rant. You said it yourself, you're the Sandaime Uzukage, right? You were the successor that Uzumaki Kanji was talking about in his log. We read the fucking scroll in the building. You were walking on a seal to keep enemy shinobi out of the village out, but you didn't finish it in time. You were supposed to be done by the day of the attack, but you were unable to finish it. She yelled loudly. I'm not to blame, Karin isn't to blame, and Naruto isn't. And neither were our parents. You don't know why the fuck they weren't in the village. But what you do know is that you didn't finish that goddamn seal and weren't able to save the village. Shut up. Shut the fuck up. Masakado shouted loudly as he pulled out a kunai with a new sealing tag attached to it. Taiyuya didn't flinch at his action. You keep calling us traitors and claiming our parents or ancestors were involved with destroying Uzushiogakure, but that's bullshit and you know it. You're trying to place the blame on us because you can't accept that you are partly the reason the village was destroyed. A malicious glint then developed in her eyes. But the funny thing is that I think, unconsciously, you do accept it. You do know that it's all your fault. For some reason, the only scroll left in the Yuzuki's office is the one that details your plan to create a seal to keep Yuzushio safe. I think you kept it safe and protected as a reminder. Because deep down, you know your belief about traitors is full of shit. Because deep down, you know it's all your fucking fault. Why Yuri? Masakado began to mumble. His mind was running rampant, processing Tayuya's words. That's. The words on his tongue died as he felt a massive wave of chakra burst through the area. The Yuzuki, along with Tayuya, Karin, and Gamaken, turned their heads toward the direction of the chakra burst and noticed Naruto standing up from the ground. The blue flames that had surrounded his body were completely gone and the seal was destroyed on the ground. Instead of the blue flames, however, Naruto's body was surrounded completely by red chakra. His physical features had changed, his teeth resembled fangs, his fingernails were sharpened into claws, his eyes developed a red tint, and his whisker marks became more pronounced. There were also 3 tails of chakra sticking out behind him, swaying back and forth. What the? Tayuya's eyes were widened. And Naruto? Karin's eyes were as equally wide as Tayuya's. A jolt of fear traveled down her spine at the sight of him, however, as she felt the essence of chakra. That chakra feels so dark. No. That's not possible. Masakado mumbled to himself. It can't be. You can't be her child. Naruto was seemingly unaware of Masakado's screaming. He remained near motionless, trying to concentrate on breathing. Naruto, are you all right? Kurama questioned the boy in his head. Yes. Naruto replied after a few seconds. I'm trying to get used to this chakra. We may be pushing it, giving you 3 tails of chakra, but I wanted to make sure I gave you enough chakra to overcome those flames. I know you haven't trained with this much of my chakra yet, but if you're careful and think rationally, you won't succumb to the power. The Kyuubi informed him. Not that I would care if you did. It would probably be better for me if you did. I'll try and think as rationally as possible. Naruto informed the fox as he took a deep breath. He recalled all of Han's advice as he tried to prevent the chakra from clouding his mind. You do what you need to do, brat. Just fight this man and kill him before he does any more damage to you or your precious cousins. Kurama advised. Right. Naruto responded out loud. After making that statement, Naruto lunged directly at Masakado. Hold on tight, Jiraiya. Gamabunta informed his summoner. The Toad Boss leaped forward towards Koropu, gripping his dagger tightly while Jiraiya did his best to remain standing upright on the Toad's head. The mole, in response, proceeded to dig underground. He got his whole body underneath just before Gamabunta managed to swing the dagger at him. He's going to probably try the trick again with the fissure. Jiraiya commented. That's what I'm expecting. Gamabunta replied in agreement. In expectation, Gamabunta jumped in the air. As expected, the ground where they had been standing split open and a large fissure appeared, causing the earth to fall in. I have an idea on how to smoke that damn mole out. Gamabunta mentioned as he started to collect water in his mouth. Water style, rampaging water. The Toad Boss released a massive stream of water out of his mouth at rapid speed into the giant hole in the ground. The water quickly rushed through the ground through all of the holes in the earth. A moment passed before Koropu was forced out of the ground. The mole's body was completely drenched and he was breathing heavily. I hate getting my fur wet. The mole declared in irritation. Ha! I have an idea that'll warm you up then. Jiraiya mumbled to himself as he made a series of hand signs. Toad oil bullet. The Sannin spat out a clump of oil that surrounded Gamabunta's dagger. The Toad Boss shared a knowing look of approval with his summoner before he jumped again towards Koropu, preparing to strike him with his dagger. The mole proceeded to block the dagger with his claws, getting some of the oil on his paws as well. Jiraiya proceeded to make another series of hand signs. Fire style, flame bullet. Jiraiya released a giant fireball out of his mouth directly at Gamabunta's dagger before Koropo could move away. The dagger's blade, covered in oil, was now entirely covered in flames. The fire then spread to the traces of oil that were on Koropo's paws. The mole recoiled immediately. Irk. He hissed in pain as he rubbed his paws against the dirt, putting the flames out quickly. With the mole's guard down completely, Gamabunta swung his fire-covered dagger straight at Koropo's stomach. The cut was deep, causing him to bleed. In addition, the rest of the stomach, due to the dagger's flames, was lit on fire. Koropo wailed in pain, both from the cut and the burns. I suppose it wasn't just Masakado-sama, who should be concerned about fighting due to old age. I should have taken my own advice. Koropo mentally scolded himself. This is bad. Time to end this. Jiraiya mentioned to Gamabunta as he held out his hand. An orb of fast, rotating visible chakra began to develop in his hand. He then jumped directly at the mole and slammed the orb directly into his skin at the wound from Gamabunta's fire-lit dagger. Rasengan. The force of the attack sent Koropo spiraling backwards at a rapid pace. Koropo continued to move backwards until he made direct contact with another nearby building. The building, subsequently, tumbled over and the once standing bricks and stones crashed directly onto the mole's body. He struggled to get up, but felt himself fall to the ground almost immediately after. His body was in too much pain. I can barely move. I can't fight like this. I'll need to heal myself. Koropo realized, shaking his slightly. It was the only real movement he could do at the moment. Masakado-sama. I am sorry. With those words, Koropo disappeared in a poof of smoke, returning to his homeland. Jiraiya and Gamabunta, seeing this, sighed in relief. The human jumped off the toad's head and landed on the ground. Glad that's taken care of. God, fighting a mole is a bitch. I can only imagine what it would have been fighting that old mole back in his prime. Gamabunta grumbled to himself. He then gave Jiraiya an inquisitive look. Is that all, Jiraiya? Or you need anything else? I could maybe use help. I need to get into that temple to help Naruto and the others in their fight with Masakado. Jiraiya declared. The Toad Sage quickly rushed forward to the Uzushi-Ogakure temple and got as close to the entrance as possible. His eyes were focused solely on the seal above the entrance while his mind was running rampant, trying to come up with a potential way to get past the Uzumaki blood seal. There has to be. Think, Jiraiya, think. He told himself as pulled out a scroll to begin his own Fuinjutsu work. Come on kids, I'll be in there as soon as I get past this. It won't be much longer. Just please, stay alive. Please? Seeing the approaching Jinchuriki, Masakado quickly replaced his kunai with his ink pen. He drew a symbol on the bronze shield in his right hand. Uzumaki Fuinjutsu, impenetrable defense. Instantaneously, the Sandai Muzukage was surrounded once again by 4 large, golden shields made of pure chakra. Naruto attempted to claw through the shield, but was unable to break through. Upon failing the first time, the blonde Uzumaki jumped backwards and made a hand sign. Smoke filled the area and he was now surrounded by 100 clones of himself. Each clone charged forward again at Masakado, attempting to strike at him. The man's shields remained stable, knocking the clones backward and preventing him from taking damage. The combined, continuous onslaught from the clones, however, managed to put a small scratch in the shield. Masakado's eyes widened immensely at the sight. Impossible. How can that be? Even with a Biju's chakra, someone would be able to damage my defense. His eyes were focused solely on the Uzumaki. Is he? No, he can't be. It can't be. As the multiple clones of Naruto charged at Masakado one more time to break his shield, the elder Uzumaki quickly made a new stroke on his bronze shield, a spiral that resembled the Uzumaki clan symbol. Uzumaki Fuinjutsu, Spiral Rotation. Immediately, the shields of chakra changed shape once again. They merged into a singular, long open disc that surrounded Masakado. The disc proceeded to spin rapidly. The clones that had attempted to attack the man were sliced by the disc, cutting them in half and causing them to dissipate. The original Naruto, however, noticed the change of tactic and quickly the Earth-style, Headhunter Jutsu. He entered the ground just as Masakado finished destroying all of the clones. The man proceeded to look around the battlefield for the boy. "Where are you?" he mumbled frantically. On cue, Naruto jumped out of the ground directly underneath Masakado's feet. The Sandai Muzukage jumped backwards, avoiding a punch aimed for his jaw. Seeing Naruto no longer in the ground, Masakado, without a hand sign, covered his right hand, including his shield, entirely in stone and proceeded to try and punch Naruto at close range. Naruto, however, was able to sidestep just in time and avoid the jutsu. He then swiped at Masakado with his right hand, using them like claws. Masakado used his left arm to block the strike. In response, Naruto performed a sweeping kick quickly. The Sandai Muzukage was unable to get away in time, however, and was sent to the ground. Naruto then raised his hand, preparing to deliver a punch to the Uzukage's face. Masakado quickly rolled backwards to avoid the attack. Recovering slightly, he drew a single stroke on the shield. Uzumaki Fuinjutsu, Unstoppable Offense. The golden disc that surrounded the two had changed shape, returning to resemble four golden spears. The spears flung towards Naruto. The blonde Uzumaki, however, jumped out of the way and avoided being skewered. He moved away from the position, putting distance between him and Masakado. "I must admit, your reflexes are a lot better," Masakado commented. "Your skill with your Biju is impressive." "I've been training with the chakra," Naruto admitted. He was breathing heavily, seemingly still trying to control the Kyuubi's influence on him. "But it's working. I can control the Kyuubi's chakra well." "The Kyuubi Jinchuriki, he has to be her child." Masakado quickly shook his head. "No. It can't be. He's a traitor. He's a descendant of a traitor. There's no way he is her son." Masakado instantly slammed his left hand against his shield, signaling the golden chakra spears. The spears charged for Naruto once again. This time, however, they moved at a much faster pace. Naruto managed to avoid the first two, but the second two spears made direct contact with his shoulders. They forced the boy down to the ground and pinned him down. The two remaining spears were then directed into the boy's legs, keeping him in place. The blonde cursed in pain and could feel himself bleed deeply, despite the Kyuubi's chakra surrounding him and healing his wounds. He struggled to pull himself up, but found himself unable to move. Seeing the blonde immobile, Masakado put away the pen in his left hand, leaving it open. He held it out and concentrated chakra into it. In a moment, his fingers were lit with a small purple-colored flame. He then charged forward towards Naruto, holding out his hand. "This ends now," he roared. Naruto, seeing the approaching Masakado, decided to inhale deeply the air around him. He then started to channel a massive amount of chakra into his mouth. He waited just as Masakado reached him. Five-pronged seal dash. Wind style, great breakthrough. Before Masakado could place the seal on Naruto, the blonde Uzumaki released a massive burst of storm-like wind from his mouth. Powered by Kyuubi's chakra and strength, the wind completely overpowered Masakado, sending him flying away and extinguishing the flames on his hand. He hit a wall in the room hard. Almost instantly, an idea entered Naruto's head. Using the three tails of chakra, Naruto managed to reach for the spears and pulled them out of his body. He then tossed them to the side. Once he pulled them out and was completely free, he rushed over to Masakado's body and picked the old man up by the neck. He held out one of his claws towards the man's neck. The Sandaime Yuzukage was looking at the boy with two emotions, rage and confusion. "Why? Haven't you died yet?" he hissed in response. The man noticed Naruto hadn't grabbed his hands, leaving him capable to perform a hand sign. He was about to use a jutsu and force Naruto to release him until the Uzumaki spoke up. "Because I don't give up, ever. That's my ninja way, Databeo," Naruto declared sharply. Masakado's eyes widened at the word choice as memories filled his mind. "Come on, Kushina. You know it's going to take more practice," Masakado informed the young red-haired girl in front of him. The girl, Kushina, sighed in response. She crumpled up the sealing paper in front of her and tossed it to the side. "I'm trying. I really am. She sighed before turning her eyes. "I don't know. I don't like Fuinjutsu. What's wrong with sticking with ninjutsu? We're Uzumaki, Kushina. Fuinjutsu is what we are kinda known for me," Masakado informed her in a deadpan-like manner. "I know that, but I don't care. I'm going to be the first Uzumaki shinobi known for her ninjutsu. And I'll be the coolest kunoichi ever," Kushina declared excitedly. Masakado sighed in response. He didn't know exactly what he was getting himself into when he accepted the request of Uzumaki Junko when she requested him to help her daughter develop an interest in Fuinjutsu. He had not known just how uninterested in the art. If an interest was going to develop, she needed something that would interest her. Something she would think was cool. "Kushina, let me show you something," Masakado requested. Kushina gave the man her full attention. Masakado responded by pulling out a small piece of paper and a pen. She immediately lost interest. "What kind of seal is this going to be?" she grumbled. "You'll see," Masakado replied immediately. It took him only a few seconds to create the elaborate symbols for the seal. Once he was finished, Masakado placed his index finger on the seal. "Uzumaki Fuinjutsu, Hurricane Manifestation." Instantly, a giant tornado-like storm developed directly above the seal. Kushina's eyes widened at the sight of the tornado. "How did you do that?" "With just some paper," Kushina questioned. "Some paper, ink, and a little bit of chakra," Masakado chuckled in response. "I have complete control of the power of the storm based on how much chakra I put into the seal. It's not a horribly strong technique right now. It won't even cut you or anything. It's safe to walk into and do this." Masakado proceeded to push Kushina face first into the tornado. The girl was immediately sent flying up the storm. The girl, at first, screamed in fright at the idea of entering something like a tornado. Immediately after she was inside, however, and was simply flying to the top of it, she started to shout in excitement. The breeze of the storm felt perfect to her. It was as if she was flying. A moment passed by before the storm disappeared. Kushina was brought down to the ground safely on her feet. Her hair was blown all over and in her eyes, but she had an excited look in her eyes. With a large grin on her face, she rushed over to Masakado and tackled him. "Teach me how to do that. Teach me," she begged him. "Why? I thought you didn't want to do Fuinjutsu?" he taunted her teasingly. "I don't care, I do now." "That was awesome," Kushina exclaimed. Masakado laughed as he pulled the little girl off of him. He then took out another sheet of paper and a pen and held it out to the girl in front of her. "We'll practice the basics, then we'll work our way up that. Okay?" he questioned. "Then, one day, you'll be able to be like me and create new Fuinjutsu just like that." "You made that jutsu?" Kushina's eyes widened in surprise. "Kid, I've made a lot of jutsu." That's just the tip of the iceberg. Masakado laughed cheerfully. You can do so much jutsu. There are so many opportunities. All right. I promise. I'll learn jutsu. And I won't stop until I become a master. She declared excitedly. Promise? Her tutor questioned her with a smirk. I promise. I'll never give up, Databane. She giggled. Thanks for showing me the jutsu, Masakado-sensei. You're a really nice guy. I like you. Ha, thanks Kushina. Masakado chuckled in response. I like you too. My mom and dad should be more like you. She declared. The tutor's eyes widened immediately, and he shook his head in embarrassment. And now, I wouldn't go that far. Why, your parents are really nice people, Kushina. Kushina's only response was to giggle, happy that she was able to fluster her teacher even slightly. There's no doubting it, he's Kushina's son. Masakado realized. Immediately, he stopped his preparations for his jutsu. His face became blank as so many different revelations began to hit him. He was no longer feeling enraged, allowing him to fully process everything that had been happening to him this day. Why are you attacking us? We're family. What have we done to you? You're trying to place the blame on us, because you can't accept that you are partly the reason the village was destroyed. Naruto's and Taiyuya's words continued to repeat in Masakado's head over and over again. The man closed his eyes, as if he was in pain. The words continued to get louder and louder in his head, until it became almost unbearable to him. I'm not a nice person, Kushina. What? What kind of man have I become? Masakado told himself. Naruto, who was still holding on to the Sandaime Uzukage by the neck, had been preparing to deliver a final blow to him. He stopped himself, however, when he noticed something. Uzumaki Masakado, the man who had tried to kill him and his cousins in an insanity-filled rage, was now openly sobbing. Tears were rolling down his eyes, and his wailing could be heard throughout the room. Masakado, the man who was a competent, ruthless, merciless shinobi, was now reduced to the state of an old, frail man. What are you waiting for, brat? Finish him. Kurama demanded within Naruto's head. The fight is over, Kurama. Naruto replied dismissively. I already told you to not call me that name. The Kyuubi hissed in response. And no, it is not. He's weak now. Kill him before he does anything. No. Naruto replied as he took a deep breath in. Immediately, he called back in the Kyuubi's chakra, forcing it back within his body. His physical features returned to normal as the red chakra that surrounded him completely disappeared. He's not going to fight, and I don't want to fight him anymore. The blonde Uzumaki made an effort to ignore the fox in his mind demanding for him to kill. Instead, he let go of his grip on the sobbing man in front of him, before passing out from exhaustion. Taiyuya, Karin, and Gamaken had been standing to the side, watching the display in front of them. Seeing Naruto use 3 taels worth of the Kyuubi's chakra had kept them motionless as they watched the display. When Naruto was pinned down, they almost sprang into action, but Naruto had turned the tide on Masakado before they needed to react. Now, with the battle over, they rushed over to check on the combatants, an unconscious Naruto and a sobbing Masakado. Chapter 39, Uzumaki Heritage. Ugh. Naruto groaned to himself as he opened his eyes. Upon waking up, the blonde Uzumaki realized that he was lying horizontally on a bed. Instead of the open, windowless room in the Yuzushiogakure temple where he had last been fighting, he was in an illuminated bedroom. He pulled himself off the bed slowly and began looking around the room. He was the only person present, nobody else was inside. The room itself was barren except for the bed and the seals on the wall that kept the room illuminated. The structure of the room resembled the rest of the building in the temple, suggesting that the blonde was still in the Yuzushiogakure temple. There was a window present in the room that revealed the full moon and nearby stars in the sky, revealing to Naruto that it was nighttime. Where am I? He questioned to himself. Where's Tayuyane and Karin? And what happened to the old guy? Naruto, still sore from his last fight, walked slowly towards the door in the room. He opened it and entered the large, circular, central room of the temple. Tayuya, Karin, Jiraiya, and Masakado were all present in the room. The two cousins had been quietly chatting to each other. Jiraiya was examining the rubble that once was a statue of the Rikudo Sannin, and Masakado was sitting down in silent meditation. All four shinobi heard the sound of Naruto opening the door and turned to face the blonde Uzumaki. And the sleeping princess finally wakes up. Tayuya commented with a snicker. 6 hours later. 6 hours? Naruto's eyes widened in response. Are you alright, Naruto? Jiraiya questioned. The Sannin quickly moved away from the statue pieces and went over to his godson. Fine. I'm just really sore and tired. Naruto replied. His voice reflected his physically tired state. Despite his own exhaustion, Naruto couldn't help but give his godfather a curious look. How did you get in here, Ero-sennin? I thought only an Uzumaki could step into the village. I let him in. Masakado spoke up, getting Naruto's attention. The Sandai Muzukage stood up from his spot and walked over to the boy. I found him on the outside of the building trying to get through the blood seal I placed at the entrance. Since I was no longer fighting the three of you, and I figured he would still be outside trying to unsuccessfully break in if I didn't do something, I just took down the seal for the moment. I would have broken your seal eventually, you know. Jiraiya grumbled in response immediately, in defense of his own skills. Bullshit. I designed that seal. There's not a damn way you would have broken in. Masakado stated dismissively. So. You aren't fighting us anymore, right? Naruto questioned the elder Uzumaki. Masakado turned his attention back to Naruto. The blonde Uzumaki noticed that the man's whole demeanor was different than the man he and his cousins had fought. The Masakado standing in front of him did not appear to have any of the signs of visible anger on his face. He also seemed much older, reflecting his age. He carried himself a lot more modestly, and his eyes seemed to wander the room in uncertainty. I talked with your cousins, Tayuya and Karin, while you were unconscious. Masakado sighed deeply before he found the ability to look Naruto in the eye. I sincerely apologize about the circumstances of our meeting. My mind wasn't thinking properly when we met. No shit. Fucking rage-induced homicidal asshole. Tayuya mumbled under her breath. Masakado gave no reaction to the kunoichi statement. Instead, the elder Uzumaki extended his hand forwards toward Naruto. In an attempt to start over, allow me to properly introduce myself. Uzumaki Masakado. Naruto smiled and extended his hand. He shook hands with the man in front of him. Uzumaki Naruto. For the first time in years, Masakado let out a good-natured snicker at Naruto's name. Naruto gave the man a confused look, prodding him to continue. Forgive me. It just dawned on me that your name, although meaning maelstrom, also refers to those fish cakes you put in ramen. Masakado explained with another snicker. I knew Kushina was obsessed with the damn food, but I didn't expect her to actually go out and name her kid after ramen. Actually, Jiraiya started to speak up. Kushina named him after Dash. Wait, you knew my mom? Naruto questioned, interrupting Jiraiya. I did. Masakado nodded his head in affirmation. I was her Fuinjutsu instructor from the age of 5 until she moved to Konoha. I knew her quite well. She talked quite a bit about you, you know. Jiraiya commented with a chuckle. The infamous seal Master Masakado. You were the one who really started her interest in Fuinjutsu. If it wasn't for you, she probably would not have even bothered with the art. She talked about me, huh? Masakado, once again for the first time in years, let a smile develop on his face. Surprised she even bothered to listen to me. I was 45 when her mother and father asked me to tutor her, and she was the type of brat that would not respect anyone at or above the age of her parents. I thought wouldn't want to listen to an old fuck like me, but somehow I got her interested in jutsu. The man sighed. She was a very sweet kid though. She was one of my favorite students. He then shook his head slightly to the side. And definitely not a traitor. I know precisely why you were in Konoha. Kushina, wherever you are in the afterlife, please forgive me. Can I ask a few more questions about my mom? About what she was like growing up? Naruto asked Masakado. The elder Uzumaki immediately nodded his head. I can do that, but in a little bit. Now that you're awake, I wanted to do some business with all of you. He then started to walk towards one of the doors in the room. Naruto, Tayuya, Karin, can you all come with me? And Jiraiya, was it? Can I ask you to wait here for a little bit? Naruto and Karin nodded their head and proceeded to stand up. They then quickly hurried over to Masakado and followed him. Tayuya seemed reluctant to join them but ultimately sighed and followed her cousins. She gripped her flute tightly in her hands as she left the group, as if expecting another attack. Jiraiya, respectfully, stayed in the room. He quickly went back to examining the pieces of the Rikudo Sennin statue. Masakado had led the three Uzumaki cousins back to the room with the genealogy on the ceiling and walls. Once again, Naruto, Tayuya, and Karin began to look in various directions, taking in every name they saw on the wall. So, who came up with the idea of this room? Tayuya questioned. This was the idea of the Shodai Yuzukage, Uzumaki Rei. Masakado answered as his eyes moved towards Karin. She was quite the lovely woman from what I heard. She wanted to keep a complete record of our clan's genealogy for future Uzushiogakure shinobi. That way, not a single person would ever be forgotten. All Uzumaki would live forever, and would be remembered within this room. It was the duty of the Yuzukage to keep it up to date and record all births, weddings, and deaths of every shinobi in the village on these walls. Masakado then walked forward to the wall. And, judging by your presence here, I have 3 more names to add to the wall. Naruto, Tayuya, and Karin looked at the man in surprise as he pulled out a pen and walked over to the wall to Kushina's name. He then looked over back to Naruto. Do you know what your father's name? I know he probably wasn't an Uzumaki, but he should probably be up on the wall. The Sandaime Yuzukage questioned. Namake's Minato. Naruto answered after a moment as a smile on his face. Masakado's eyes widened at the name. Despite shutting himself away from the outside world in Uzushiogakure since the invasion, he was not completely unaware of the events that happened in the elemental nations. He recognized Namake's Minato's name instantly and chuckled. Heh. He's on a small list of non-Uzumaki shinobi whose skill with jutsu I respect. I'm not surprised Kushina was attracted to a seal master. The Sandaime Yuzukage noted. The man quickly wrote Minato's name on the wall. He then connected him to Kushina and wrote the name of Uzumaki Naruto underneath. He then turned to face Tayuya, giving her a look. She grumbled under her breath for a moment before relenting the names. My parents were Uzumaki Arashir and Uzumaki Ami. She answered. My father was Naruto's mother's cousin. I knew that. I knew your parents as well. Your mother was quite the polite young woman, but your father was fucking obnoxious. But I guess he was a good kid through and through. Masakado chuckled as he walked over to their names. His eyes then widened at a realization. Wait, how old are you? And are you an only child? 14. And no. Tayuya answered. She gave the man a look of confusion. What does that have to do anything? I knew your parents before the invasion of the village. They were both 16 and both were already married. Masakado closed his eyes as he did some mental math in his head. He then gave Tayuya a surprised look. Your parents were pretty fucking old when they finally decided to have you. Did they make some commitment not to fuck for the first 15 years of marriage? How the hell would I know that? I don't want to talk or think about my parents' sex lives, damn it. Tayuya hissed quickly. Her face was bright red in embarrassment at the thought. Unlike her, Masakado was able to push the thought aside. He proceeded to write Uzumaki Tayuya underneath the names of her parents. His attention then moved to the third Uzumaki cousin. He made a gesture, prodding her to name her parents. Karin, in response, sighed. I actually don't know who my parents were. I was an orphan in Kusa. Karin answered with a frown on her face. You can just put my name in a corner or something, or do nothing. I don't have to have a place on the wall. All Uzumakis have a place on the wall. The Sandaime Yuzukage dismissed her suggestion immediately. He then moved over to a separate section of the wall and began to examine names. A few seconds passed by before his eyes moved back to look at Karin. During our battle, I noticed you heal Tayuya by allowing her to bite into your skin. That's a very unique quality your life force has that not every Uzumaki possesses. Only the line of the Uzumaki Ray had that ability. Karin's eyes widened at the statement. You think I'm related to the Shodai Yuzukage? Not think. If your life force has that quality, then you are. Masakado replied with a shrug as his eye moved to Uzumaki Ray's name on the wall. He then moved downward. She had 2 daughters. One of them died early in her life, unmarried. The other married and had 1 kid. He moved down the genealogy to another set of names. This one also married and had 2 more children, a son and a girl. Those 2 were in my generation and I knew them both well. The son, unfortunately, died on a mission and didn't father any children. The daughter, a girl named Uzumaki Keiko, however, did marry and had a son just a few days before the invasion. I actually met her son a few times before the invasion, and I recall him having poor vision and needing glasses. Masakado pointed to a new name. Karin walked forward slowly and looked at the name. Uzumaki Hiro. She mumbled. Her eyes moved to Masakado as she gave him a pleading look. Was he my father? Logically, he has to be. Masakado replied with a chuckle. He was a good kid. All of your parents were good kids. A frown then crept onto his face as he let out a sigh. They didn't deserve to die as young as they all did. You're the fakest piece of shit I've ever met. Tayuya declared. The former Sound 4 member walked forward to the Sandaime Yuzukage and pointed her flute directly at the man, as if it was a kunai. Masakado had no reaction to her comment. He simply gave her a confused look. Just a few fucking hours ago, our parents were traitors to you, and you were trying to kill us. Now, just because you fucking taught Naruto's mom when she was a kid, you're mourning their deaths? You're claiming them to be good people now. Just after spitting on their legacies? Tayuya spat on the ground directly at Masakado's feet. You disgust me, old man. Tayuya. Naruto called out with a frown on his face. He walked forward to the 2 and attempted to step in between them. Enough. Bah. The kunoichi scoffed. Within seconds, Tayuya turned around and stormed out of the room, slamming the wooden door shut. Naruto immediately rushed after the girl, shouting her name. Karin and Masakado were left in the room alone. Karin looked in concern at Masakado, who had a blank look on his face. Don't think too much about what she says, Masakado. Karin informed him. Taiyuya's the type to hold grudges and anger easily. She doesn't really mean anything. I really don't mind it. It's the truth after all. Masakado interrupted the Kusa kunoichi with a sigh. He then walked over to the door and opened it. That's all I really had to do at the moment with you all. You should probably go and find your cousins. With those words, Masakado left the room. Karin, left alone, quickly left the room. She then began to look for Naruto and Taiyuya. Taiyuya. Wait. Naruto called out to her. The blonde Uzumaki followed Taiyuya out of the temple and into the ruined city of Uzushiogakure. The flute-playing kunoichi didn't appear to have a particular direction she was going in, she was just trying to get away. She gave no response to Naruto's shouting. That, however, did not stop Naruto. Taiyuya. He yelled out her name again. The Konoha shinobi proceeded to walk faster in his approach towards Taiyuya. He was now starting to catch up to her. Just as he was about to reach her, however, the girl proceeded to turn around and face him directly. A scowl was on her face as she pointed her index finger directly at him. What the fuck do you want me to do, Naruto? You want me to just bend over and forgive him because he apologized and doesn't want to fight? Fuck that. She hissed. He just tried to kill us, tried to kill you for fuck's sake. All of it was under the premise that our parents were all traitorous scum. He didn't mean it. He just admitted that our parents weren't. Naruto explained. His mind was just dash. I don't care what his mind was like or what he was thinking about. That doesn't change what he said and what he did. I know my parents weren't traitors and he spat on their legacy. Taiyuya continued to yell. He did the same thing to your mother, the person he taught and knew so well too, you know? I don't know why you aren't at all offended by his bullshit, but I sure as hell am. Naruto opened his mouth, but was interrupted by Taiyuya, who brought her index finger closer to Naruto's face. No, don't try to defend him. I'm tired of hearing his excuses and excuses for him. He went on and on about this shit when you were unconscious. It was bullshit then, and it still is now. She rolled her eyes. Seriously, give me one good reason why I should bother him. Tell me why I should even put up with his crap. Naruto's mind was running rampant as he tried to think of a reason to give to Taiyuya. This caused him to wonder his own personal feelings towards Masakado. Although he was interested in his relationship with his mother, he would still have to admit that he didn't like the man too much. He was still pretty rude, said very nasty things before their fight, and did try to kill them, as Taiyuya had said. If it wasn't for the Kyuubi, Naruto would probably have been killed by him. What was stopping Naruto from hating the man the same way Taiyuya hated him? The answer came relatively quickly to his mind. When I was fighting him, just before I fell unconscious, I said something that caused him to stop fighting. I don't really remember what I said or know why it stopped him, but he started to cry. Naruto recalled to his cousin. I remember. Taiyuya nodded her head. Your point though? We know what that scroll that Karin had found said. He was supposed to invent a seal to protect Uzushiogakure from the invasion, but he wasn't able to do it and the village was destroyed. His family and the village that was elected to protect had all died in front of him. And he could trace all of the blame back to himself. I really don't know how anybody would be able to handle that. I know I couldn't. Naruto commented with a sigh. His mind obviously couldn't handle it either. His mind was filled with nothing but built-in anger and self-hatred that he took out on the only thing in front of him at the time, which was us. I really don't think he would normally do that. And I understand all of that. I understand why he would have gone insane and shit. Taiyuya acknowledged. Still, she was giving Naruto the same questioning the look. But why should that excuse his actions? His mind is clearly in a better place. The Uzumaki declared. He regrets what he did and has admitted that he messed up. At this point, there is nothing we can do but forgive him. He can be sorry all he wants. I don't give a shit. Tayuya rolled her eyes. I'm not the forgiving type. But you should be. Everybody should be. Naruto informed him sharply. What if I didn't forgive you? For all the work you did with Orochimaru? Tayuya's eyes widened in response at Naruto's comment. The two had not discussed Orochimaru much since their initial conversation in the jail cell at Konoha. The former Sound 4 member recalled Naruto's relationship with Mitarashi Anko, Orochimaru's former student, and remembered that Naruto had been attacked by the deceased Sannin. He had plenty of reasons to hate Orochimaru's existence, and by association, hers. Hesitantly, Tayuya brought her index finger down from in front of Naruto's face. She brought her hands together and started to look anxious. Why did you forgive me then? Why don't you hate me? She asked quietly. Because you have every right to hate my fucking guts. And I would if I were in your shoes. 2 reasons. 1, because I don't want to hate anybody. Naruto admitted plainly. When you hate somebody, you become someone like Masakado was when he attacked us. It's a consuming emotion. You don't think straight. You just focus on your hate, and it makes you somebody who you are not. I want to avoid hating anybody that I think has some good in them. A small frown developed on Naruto's face. I used to hate IWA Shinobi for all of the things they did to Konoha during the Third Shinobi War, but once I met a few IWA Shinobi on a mission, I realized that they were people like me that suffered then during the war at Konoha's hand. It made me realize that hate only clouds people's minds. I only thought of them as if they were demons, but it turns out, they were no different than me. The second reason? Tayuya questioned. Because you aren't a bad person. Naruto informed her with a smile. Tayuya's eyes widened at that answer. You may have been working for Orochimaru, but you were just trying to find more members of the Uzumaki clan. It may not make it easy to forget things you've done, but it shows that you aren't a bad person, and that you deserve a second chance. You're my cousin, Tayuyane. Naruto's face smile dropped slightly as he gave her a serious look. And Masakado is family to us as well. And I know he's not a bad person, and I know you that too. For the same reasons that I can't hate you, I can't hate him. I don't think I'm able to share those feelings. Tayuya mumbled in response. I'm not you, Naruto. I'm not a forgiving person. The blonde Uzumaki shook his head. You don't have to be me. You just need to understand where Masakado was coming from. I don't think you have to fully forgive him. Just don't hate him for what he's done and try to move on from there. Tayuya remained silent as she processed Naruto's words. She turned away from him and began to stare into the night sky in deep thought. Naruto stayed by her side, but remained quiet while she thought to herself. Naruto. Tayuya. While Tayuya didn't seem to pay attention, Naruto turned his head towards the sound of the voice. Karin was running over towards them. The girl breathed heavily once she finally arrived at their location, but then gave her cousins a concerned look. Is everything okay? She questioned. Naruto shrugged in response. He and Karin turned to face Tayuya, who was still staring into the sky. Roughly a minute passed before she finally turned her head back towards her cousins. A small smile graced her lips. I'm fine. Just need to think. She replied. We should probably head back to the temple, huh? With that suggestion, the 3 Uzumaki cousins started to walk back towards the temple. Naruto and Karin chatted to each other about various topics. Tayuya listened half-heartedly, but her mind was still focused on Naruto's words to her about Masakado and herself. Move on, huh? Tayuya mentally repeated the words. Masakado had returned to the large, open room in the Uzushiogakure temple. Jiraiya was still there, examining the statue. The Sandaime Uzukage didn't pay much attention to him, and simply sat down in meditation. A few seconds of silence passed before Jiraiya finally stopped his investigation, and turned his head towards Masakado. The Sannin seemed to notice tension on the Uzumaki's face. "You want to talk?" he questioned. "Contrary to popular belief, I'm not a bad guy. I can listen if you have something you want to rant about." "Talk? Rant?" Masakado scoffed. "I'm a 77-year-old man who has spent the last 27 years of my life with my only conversational partners being moles. I don't really consider myself as somebody good at talking." "Well then, do you mind if I talk to you and ask some questions?" Jiraiya asked out of curiosity. Masakado gave no verbal response, which the Sannin took as his permission to question him. "Why did you never leave Uzushio-gakure? Why didn't you let anybody know you were still alive?" "Who would I have let known? I guarantee I would have had Kumo, Kiri, and Iwa on my ass trying to kill me if they knew I survived the invasion." Masakado scoffed. "I suppose I could have informed someone in Konoha, like Sarutobi Hirozen, but I didn't care to say anything. I'm still pissed that he didn't send anybody to help Uzushio. We found out about the invasion too late." Jiraiya stated quickly. "I realize that. Having said that, it doesn't change my feelings. I'm still pissed that you all couldn't do anything." The Sandaime Uzukage replied with a scowl. "But I suppose the main reason I didn't do anything was because I've been working nonstop on a seal that would fix everything." "A seal?" Jiraiya questioned. "How familiar are you with the concept of time travel?" Masakado questioned. Jiraiya gave Masakado a confused look at the question. Time travel was a concept that many scientists and seal masters have tried to study. The idea of going back in time to fix mistakes was something that could appeal to nearly every person. Even Jiraiya would have to admit that was something he had considered looking into. However, every attempt by anybody to research time travel proved fruitless. Time travel appeared to be something only capable in fiction, not in reality. "What about it?" he finally questioned after a moment of silence. "I've tried to accomplish time travel now for the past 25 years. Masakado admitted with a frown. "I've obtained all possible notes and research on spacetime, and have tried to design a seal that would be able to take me back in time to the day of the invasion, and allow me the chance to fix everything and to save my people. I've spent every day for 25 years trying to figure out how, and have failed each time." Jiraiya's eyes softened at the answer. "If you can't perform it, then it must be impossible." The Sannin commented sadly. "I suppose, but I still have to keep trying. I made an advancement in the last 2 years that I've been working with that I think may hold the key." The Uzumaki replied. "How so?" Jiraiya gave the man an incredulous look. "Although I think you'd understand the theory behind it, I think it might be easier to simply show you." Masakado informed him as he stood up. The Uzumaki walked over to Jiraiya and pulled out an elaborate seal from his jacket sleeve. He then placed the seal directly on Jiraiya's forehead. "This may seem odd, but you have to trust that I have a reason for my actions. I want you to hurry over to the other side of the room. Once you get there, I want you to stab yourself in the hand with a kunai." Jiraiya gave the man a curious look, but nodded in understanding. Relenting to the man's request, the Sannin quickly rushed over to the other side of the room. He then pulled out a kunai and proceeded to stab his hand. He winced slightly in pain as blood started to drip from the wound. Once Jiraiya finished his request, Masakado went through a long series of hand signs. Fuin Jutsu, Chrono Reversal. The seal on Jiraiya's forehead proceeded to glow a bright blue color. Instantaneously, the blue light surrounded his body, encasing him. The blue light quickly moved backwards towards Jiraiya's initial position right by Masakado's side. Upon arrival, the blue light released Jiraiya and faded away. The seal on the Sannin's head proceeded to immediately disintegrate once the jutsu was complete. Jiraiya was currently in a daze and seemed confused about his position. He looked around, trying to understand what had happened and why he had moved. He then noticed something: he was no longer feeling pain. He quickly turned his attention to the hand that he had stabbed with his kunai only to notice that there was no wound. It appeared as if he was standing exactly where he had been, and that he had never even been injured. What the? Jiraiya mumbled to himself. His mind was trying to understand what had just happened to him. As Jiraiya was slowly trying to understand what had happened, Masakado proceeded to fall to the ground. Jiraiya rushed over to the man's side and tried to help him up, but the Uzumaki seemed incapable of standing at the moment. He was breathing very heavily and struggling to remain conscious. Bad decision. I shouldn't have used the jutsu so soon after my fight with those 3 kids. Masakado mumbled as he winced in pain. Despite the pain in his body, however, he turned to face Jiraiya and gave him a curious look. Do you understand what I just did, though? Did you just take me back in time? Jiraiya questioned in amazement. In a loose sense, I suppose. The Sandaime Yuzukage replied with a chuckle. With a grunt, the man managed to pull himself off the ground. He took a deep breath, trying to still ignore the pain, before continuing to speak to Jiraiya. That seal I put on your head is my most advanced creation based on over 20 years of research on space-time. It records a direct copy of your body's physical condition, and its placement in accordance to its surroundings. It constantly stays up to date with every action you make. Once activated, it recreates the recorded image and forces your body to return to those conditions. Masakado mumbled. He closed his eyes in thought, as if trying to come up with the words to explain his technique. It's not fully time travel, but it allows the person affected to travel back to a specific place that the seal recorded and keeps their physical condition the way it was then. Essentially, this jutsu forces a person to move through space back to where they had been, and heals any wounds that they may have taken during that time period. Jiraiya realized. That's one way to put it, yes. Masakado commented. How long you travel back in time depends on the person using the jutsu, but it seems to be limited at 30 seconds max. It's not much, but I'm trying to find some way to expand on this jutsu and create full-scale time travel. Not much? Jiraiya shook his head. The Sannin was completely stunned about the existence of this technique and couldn't understand what Masakado meant. This is a huge advancement in the field of Fuinjutsu. Do you have any idea how many lives this one seal could save? This could allow seal masters to save the lives of their comrades during any mission and prevent so many needless deaths. How is this not that much? It's not what I was trying to create, damn it. I want to go back in time to save my family and village, not heal some fucking wounds from the past 30 seconds. That's how it's not that much to me. Masakado growled. Still dash. Even then, it's not much, because the jutsu has way too much limiting factors to really be able to save as many lives as you think it could. The Sandaime Yuzukage informed Jiraiya sharply. He then held out his index finger. 1. The user of the jutsu must be the person who created the seal. And to be completely honest, there are only 3 people other than myself who I would even trust to attempt to create the seal. All 3 of those people are dead. Masakado then held out his middle finger. 2. This jutsu can be messed up badly. This ties in with my last point. If someone attempts this jutsu and is unable to use it, they could potentially erase the person that they are trying to save from the spacetime continuum. They'd kill the person. I could easily see this jutsu actually being the thing that truly kills people, not saves them. The Sandaime Yuzukage then proceeded to hold out his ring finger. And 3. The sheer amount of chakra this jutsu requires. I'm fucking drained right now. I can only practice with my research with this jutsu once a day with how physically draining it is to me. Right now, if you tried to kill me, there's not a damn thing I could do about it. And if any seal master somehow managed to pull this jutsu off on the battlefield, they won't be able to do anything else for the rest of the battle. They'd simply be waiting for an enemy to come and kill them. Jiraiya remained quiet for a moment. He closed his eyes in deep thought as he began to process Masakado's words about the limitations of the jutsu. Not trying to really be rude about it, but I'm just explaining facts about the jutsu. Masakado mentioned with a shrug. It's not the life-saving technique you think it is. It's just a small advancement that I hope can help lead to some form of time travel. What if I had somebody that could do this jutsu? Jiraiya spoke up. The Sandaime Yuzukage raised an eyebrow at the Sannin. I think I know somebody who has enough chakra and general strength that they'd be able to use this technique properly without draining themselves in a battlefield. The Toad Sage stated. Would you be willing to teach it to them if they could do it? It's just a jutsu for my research. Nothing more. Masakado dismissed the comment. But if I had somebody that could do it, if I had somebody that could do a lot of good with this technique, would you teach it to them? Jiraiya continued to question. The Uzumaki remained quiet for a moment until he shrugged and started to speak. For the moment, he would humor the man. Well, yeah. If I actually thought they could learn the jutsu and actually use it the way you think they could, then I'd help. But, again, we're talking hypotheticals. I doubt this person has as much chakra as you're talking about, but assuming they did, are they that skilled at Fuinjutsu to pull it off? They haven't studied it yet. Jiraiya stated. A scowl developed on Masakado's face. The Sannin spoke up quickly. But he's very quick at learning and has an interest to start learning Fuinjutsu. And he definitely has the necessary chakra reserves and physical conditions to handle the draining aspect of the jutsu. I know. I know he'd be able to learn this jutsu and use it to save his comrades during battle. And this person would be? The Yuzukage demanded. Before Jiraiya could answer, the door to the room opened up. Naruto, Taiyuya, and Karin entered the room. The three Uzumaki cousins walked over to the two seal masters. Sorry about that. Naruto apologized to them. We just had something to do for a moment. That's fine. Masakado and I were just having a lovely talk. Jiraiya answered. Anyway, now that you are here, I was thinking of asking you all something. We can technically return to Konoha whenever we want. However, I think I would like to stay here for just a few more days. A week tops. It's here I would like to begin some training with you three on Fuinjutsu. Fuinjutsu? Karin questioned in surprise. And you want to work with all three of us? Really? Really, Ero Sennin? Naruto seemed as if he was about to jump up and down in excitement at the thought of learning Fuinjutsu. Of course, I want to work with all three of you. It's in the Uzumaki blood, and I haven't taught Fuinjutsu to somebody in years. This could be good for all of us. Besides, the world needs more seal masters. Jiraiya commented. He then turned his head towards Masakado. Would you like to help me teach them, Masakado? Masakado didn't say anything at first. He began to notice something. Jiraiya's eyes were subtly moving back and forth from Naruto to Masakado. A thought entered the man's mind. Is he the boy Jiraiya said would be capable? He realized. I guess I can find out. I'll help. If they want my help, that is. The elder Uzumaki stated. To everyone's surprise, Taiyuya stepped forward and bowed at Masakado. She then looked up and gave him a curious look. So, when do we start? Masakado-sensei? Taiyuya questioned. Masakado's eyes were wide in surprise at her question, her tone, and her overall behavior. It took him a few seconds to recover from the shock. A genuine smile crossed his lips. Whether or not I can teach Naruto the jutsu, I think I'll enjoy teaching them regardless. This world needs a reminder that the Uzumaki clan Fuinjutsu is still alive, after all. He noted to himself. We'll start first thing tomorrow. On the boat to Mizu no Kuni, the merchants were all crowded together in the hold of the ship, trying to sleep. On the outside of the ship, the 4 Konoha shinobi were there, rotating shifts between sleeping and keeping watch. Dosu was currently on watch and, therefore, was standing in the crow's nest, looking out for any incoming ships. Anko and Shikamaru were fast asleep as they waited for their shifts. Hinata, in theory, would be sleeping with them. However, she found herself unable to sleep. Instead, she was at the edge of the ship, doing her best not to vomit. Just get through the night. Only 1.5 days left. Hinata mumbled to herself. Like father like daughter, the Hyuga heiress suffered the same condition that her father had on his first mission, seasickness. The movement of the ship was random and unsettling to her and generated the urge to throw up. Hinata, at the moment, wanted nothing more than to get off the ship and to set foot on solid earth again. How do sailors do this every day? I would hate this. She commented before feeling something come up in her throat. Are you alright, Hinata-san? Hinata didn't even bother to respond to the voice, she simply bent over the side of the building and proceeded to throw up. A moment passed before the urge died down and she returned to her original position. She took in a deep sigh before turning to face the source of the voice, the merchant, Haku. Haku-san. Hinata blushed in embarrassment at being caught doing something so vulgar in front of somebody else. I didn't know you were still awake. I don't sleep too well. I'm more of a night person. Haku replied with a smile. Are you having trouble sleeping too? Seasick? The kunoichi opened her mouth to respond, but the urge to vomit arose again. She quickly covered her mouth and tried to resist the urge. Haku proceeded to laugh quietly in response, causing her cheeks to redden once again. Sorry. I'm not, well, really used to this. She mumbled to herself. No one is. Sea travel isn't the most pleasant experience. Especially in a boat like this. The merchant chuckled. He then reached into the pocket of his kimono and pulled out a vial that contained a brownish-colored plant. Why don't you try one of these? Hinata took the vial from Haku's hands and examined the plant. She recognized it almost immediately. Ginger? Aha. It will help with the seasickness. The boy told her with a gentle smile. Hinata, after a moment of thought, proceeded to open up the vial and took out one of the plant herbs. She then proceeded to place it in her mouth and chew it. She then returned the vial back to Haku while she swallowed it. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. She told him with a smile of her own. I never actually heard about ginger helping with seasickness before. Don't thank me. It's nothing much. Haku replied with a chuckle. It also helps with motion sickness in general. I'll keep that in mind. I like working with natural remedies, so I'll definitely make a note of that in my books. Hinata replied with a giggle. Are you familiar with other plants and herbs? I am. I love looking at flowers and collecting them. My mother taught me everything she knew about them before she passed away. Haku explained. His smile gained a sad quality to it. Hinata immediately bowed her head towards the boy. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. It happened long ago. I had time to heal. He replied. The boy's eyes then focused in on the Hyuga. Hinata-san, do you care if I ask you a personal question? Feel free to say no. She quickly shook her head in response. Go ahead. What do you want to know? Why are you a shinobi? What made you want that type of lifestyle? Haku questioned. Hinata gave the boy a surprised look. She didn't assume he would ask a question like that. The girl, however, didn't mind the question and closed her eyes, trying to come up with an answer that would satisfy him. After a few seconds of thought, she opened her eyes again and started to speak. I want to protect Konoha and do what I can for my village. I want to make myself strong so I can help the people in my life and protect them. Hinata answered simply. So, it's about protecting. Haku mumbled to himself. Do you have somebody precious to you? Many people. The Hyuga heiress nodded her head in affirmation. Images of her family, her classmates, and her friends entered her mind. An image of Naruto, however, lasted the longest in her head and caused her to blush. Naruto-kun. Who is that? The merchant questioned. Hinata, unaware that she said his name, gave Haku a confused look. Realizing that she indeed mumbled his name, the girl started to blush further in embarrassment. He's just somebody really close to me. As someone that I've always respected and dash. Maybe love? Haku guessed. Hinata didn't immediately respond, causing the boy to chuckle. I don't know much about that kind of love, but I can tell you must feel strongly about him. I've seen that far-off look and blush on your face from time to time during our time together. You think about him a lot, don't you? I do. Hinata admitted with a sigh. A smile developed on her face as the blush started to fade. I plan on talking to him the next time I see him and admit my own feelings. And whether or not he reciprocates, I don't care. I just want to finally let him know what he means to me. That's a good idea. Let him know and just see what happens. Haku advised with a gentle smile. Aha. The Hyuga nodded her head. She was about to say something else in response, but she found herself yawning instead. Haku proceeded to chuckle once again. Tired? No longer feeling seasick? He questioned. Yeah. I am. And, honestly, I'm starting to feel a little better. Hinata commented with a smile. Thank you so much for the ginger, Haku-san. And for the talk. I really enjoyed it. Don't think anything of it. I'm lucky to have you shinobi escorting me back to my home. The merchant replied. You get some sleep. I'll probably stay up just a little longer. I will. Hinata nodded her head. She then gave Haku a friendly hug before starting to walk off. Good night. Haku waved goodbye to the kunoichi. When he noticed that she was gone and had returned to her quarters next to Anko and Shikamaru, the merchant sighed. He then looked out towards the sea with a sad smile on his face. I hope everything works out for you, Hinata-san, and that you can make it home in one piece to tell him how you feel. Haku mentally sighed. Hopefully everything works out for all of us in these next few days. Zabuza-sama. I'll be there soon. Stay safe. As soon as daylight hit the ruined village of Uzushiogakure, Naruto, Taiyuya, and Karin were forced awake by Jiraiya and Masakado. The three Uzumaki cousins were yawning and appeared annoyed as the two seal masters rushed them out of the temple. The group then proceeded to sit down on the ground as they began their lesson. So, you all know the basics about Fuin Jutsu, correct? What its use is and the general principles about how it works? Masakado questioned. Basically, you use a mixture of ink and chakra to create a particular seal on paper. Taiyuya answered with a yawn. This can be used for different shit, but the main things are sealing objects, unseal objects, and restrict movement of some sort. For the most part, correct. However, it doesn't necessarily have to be ink. The medium could be blood. And the uses for Fuinjutsu are limitless. The Sandai Muzukage declared, passion evident in his voice. The only limiting factors are the seal master's skill and their creativity. Creativity. You can do roughly anything with it based on what type of chakra you encode into the seal, what type of seal you drew, what medium you use. Again, to reiterate what he said, the potential of Fuinjutsu is only limited by your own capabilities. Jiraiya declared, interrupting the Yuzukage. Why aren't there more seal masters, then? Karin questioned in confusion. If the potential is near limitless, wouldn't it make sense for everyone to practice Fuinjutsu then? There are a couple of reasons, but the main reason behind it is the complexity of the art. Jiraiya answered. Let me demonstrate. Masakado requested as he pulled out 2 pieces of paper and a pen. The Sandai Muzukage quickly drew an elaborate seal on one of the papers. By the time he finished, he attached the seal to a kunai knife and tossed it into the sky. He then made a singular hand sign, causing the seal to explode and create fireworks in the sky. The 3 Uzumaki cousins watched in amazement. Wow! Naruto gasped. It's so pretty. Karin mumbled. That was a seal done correctly. Now, observe this. Masakado declared, calling their attention. Masakado, once again, began drawing an elaborate seal on the second paper. This time, however, he made one singular stroke on the paper differently. Once the seal was complete, he attached it to a kunai knife and tossed it into the sky. He made the same hand sign. Instead of exploding and releasing more fireworks, however, the seal merely caught on fire and disappeared. What happened? Taiyuya questioned. The seal didn't work. That's what happens when there is a mistake in the creation process of a seal. Even if it's a minor mistake, it can still ultimately ruin the jutsu. Fuinjutsu is not a forgiving art. It will punish the user if they make even the slightest of mistakes. Masakado informed them. Now, the seal only disappeared from existence because of the nature of the technique. However, some seals, like seals that directly affect the user, can have a lot more drastic effects if they are ultimately done incorrectly. Jiraiya explained. He then turned to face Naruto. Naruto, your father had to design a seal when using the Hirosaki no Jutsu, the Flying Thunder God technique. If he made a single mistake when making the seal that he was using, he could have potentially destroyed himself. Naruto's eyes widened in fear. Really? It's a dangerous art, kid, but filled with dangerous possibilities for your enemies. Masakado declared with a shrug. But I hope that helps you all understand how important it is to do things right with Fuinjutsu. It will help explain the first step to learning Fuinjutsu. Jiraiya and Masakado both pulled out 3 scrolls and handed them to the 3 Uzumaki cousins. They then handed them separate ink pens. Once each Uzumaki had their tools, Masakado pulled out a 4th scroll and laid it out in front of them. Written on the scroll were various kanji, ranging from kanji of the natural elements to kanji that represented abstract concepts, like time or health. Altogether, there were 20 different symbols on the scroll. To figure out where to start though, we're going to see how your penmanship is. I want you all to copy these kanji perfectly onto your scrolls. Masakado informed them. This is a test to see how precise your penmanship and your brush strokes. It's the simplest task involved, but it's also the easiest thing to fuck up. And, if you truly intend to add Fuinjutsu to your repertoire, you can't afford to fuck up when designing your seals. Easy. Taiyuya rolled her eyes. Any random person can write properly. This won't be hard at all. Oh? Masakado raised one of his eyebrows. Alright, start copying. You have 30 seconds. 30 seconds? Naruto shouted loudly. 29, 28. The Sandai Muzukage continued to count. Frantically, the three Uzumaki cousins began to copy down the kanji onto their own scrolls. Masakado proceeded to count down from 30 to 1. By the time he finished, the three Uzumakis were still writing. "Stop. That's all the time you had," he ordered. "Jiraiya, how did they do?" Jiraiya quickly rushed over and took the scrolls away from the Uzumaki cousins. He then started to examine them. A frown developed on his face. None of them finished. Karin wrote 16 kanji, Naruto managed 12, and Taiyuya just hit 10. Having said that, not all of the kanji were done correct. I can see brushstrokes that were missed and Taiyuya forgot a complete radical in the kanji 4-time dot. He answered. Masakado took the scrolls and examined them himself. He brought the palm of his left hand to his face and sighed upon seeing the results. "This is going to take a while, it seems," he grumbled. "What was the point of a time limit?" Karin questioned. "Yeah, what the fuck?" Taiyuya hissed. "Do you really think that if you try and draw a seal on the battlefield that an enemy shinobi will simply wait and let you draw your seal undisturbed?" "Fuck no." Masakado rolled his eyes. "If you want to even dare, consider yourself a student of Fuin Jutsu. You need to be able to produce a seal instantly on command. If you can't do that, then forget about using this type of jutsu in battle. Period." Taiyuya grumbled in response, but did not backtalk him. She, Naruto, and Karin seemed to accept his answer. A few seconds passed before Naruto opened his mouth. "So, can we practice again?" he requested. Masakado gave no verbal reply. Instead, he responded by returning their scrolls to them. Naruto, Taiyuya, and Karin began practicing again right away, and the timer was started once more. "Alright, that's enough for now." Jiraiya spoke up. The group had spent 6 straight hours of practicing speed writing different kanji. It was a tedious session, but the quality was improving. Naruto, Taiyuya, and Karin proved to be capable of drawing 20 unique kanji in 30 seconds quite well. The quality of their writing still needed to be improved, but they were getting the speed down. That was a step in the right direction so far. We'll get back to work on improving the quality of your strokes in a little bit, but for now, I want to start working on another concept. Masakado informed them. The Sandaime Uzukage proceeded to lead the group back towards the temple. They remained outside, standing just by the front doors. Upon arrival, Masakado pulled out 3 slips of sealing paper and handed it to Naruto, Taiyuya, and Karin. We practiced, in a very general form, the idea of writing and creating seals at a rapid rate. Now, I'd like to start practicing on the other general idea that is required for Fuin Jutsu, sealing your chakra inside them. Masakado informed them. "And how do we go about doing that?" Karin questioned. "You all did those basic chakra control exercises, right? Balancing the leaf on your forehead, walking up trees, etc. All that basic stuff?" Jiraiya asked. The 3 Uzumaki cousins nodded. "It's a very similar to that. How we're going to start is by having you all seal a small portion of your chakra into the sealing paper so that it'll stick to the wall without falling." Masakado informed them. To demonstrate, Jiraiya pulled out his own sealing paper. He placed the paper on the wall and kept his index finger on it. A second passed by and Jiraiya removed his finger. The paper remained stuck to the wall. It's a simple exercise, but it helps you all start with placing your chakra within seals, which is a necessity for legitimately every sealing technique. The Sandaime Uzukage commented. "Try it yourselves." Naruto, Taiyuya, and Karin nodded their heads in understanding. They then walked over to the wall of the building and placed the seal on the wall, holding it in place with their index fingers. "Mold chakra into your finger." The Uzukage continued to explain. "Once you feel like you have chakra into your finger, attempt to release it from the chakra points in your finger alone. It will have nowhere to go except for the paper. Apply just the right amount of chakra it would take to keep a leaf on top of your head. The three Uzumaki cousins attempted to take Masakado's advice to heart and channeled their chakra into their fingers. They then tried to transfer the chakra to the sealing paper. A few seconds passed by before they let go of the papers. Naruto's and Taiyuya's papers immediately fell to the ground. Both cousins appeared to look sheepish at the display. Masakado brought his palms to his face, grumbling quietly to himself. Jiraiya snorted, trying to resist full-out laughing at the elder Uzumaki's frustration. At least Karin's paper remained on the wall. Jiraiya replied with a shrug and a slight attempt to make Masakado pleased. As if on cue, Karin's paper fell off the wall and landed on the ground. Jiraiya could no longer resist and immediately burst into laughter. We are going to need to spend a lot of time practicing, it seems. Masakado sighed in response. The three Uzumaki cousins were unaware exactly how much more practice they were going to end up doing. Masakado was a stubborn man and an even more stubborn teacher. He wasn't going to stop until they had Fuinjutsu completely down, even it killed him, or, most likely, them. Ah, finally! Land! Anko cheered loudly. The merchant caravan joined her in cheering as their ship docked at the port town of Senso in Mizu no Kuni. After 2.5 days of sailing, they had finally arrived at their destination. Almost immediately upon arrival, the group disembarked. Hinata and Dosa stepped off first and were followed slowly by the merchants. Shikamaru and Anko, along with a few of the younger, stronger merchants, helped with removing supplies and merchandise from the ship and into carts that were already prepared for the merchants. Roughly an hour and a half after arrival, the group was about ready to start heading towards their destination. Everyone was now at the gates of the town and was ready to start walking. All right now, we're little ways travel away from Kibo, the town you all requested us to take you to. If we go at a good pace though, we should arrive there just before nightfall. Anko informed them. That's a relief. One of the merchants, an older man with blonde hair, admitted. We really need to get back to town as soon as possible. Yeah. We'll get you there. Anko replied with a chuckle. Let's dash. I hear something. Dosa spoke up, interrupting the jonin. The group gave him his full attention. I hear footsteps, loud, multiple footsteps. The boy turned his head to face Hinata. Hinata-san, can you activate your Byakugan? The kunoichi responded by activating her dojutsu. Using her enhanced vision, she saw what Dosa was referring to. A group of 5 shinobi, not too far away from the town, was rushing towards the gate. Each of them were wearing masks with the Kirigakure symbol, and were dressed in shinobi attire. How many are approaching? Dosu questioned. 5. She answered. Instantly, the merchant caravan stiffened in fear. They started to chatter to each other nervously, and a few of them began to pray to various deities for their safety. Anko proceeded to step forward ahead of her students. Everybody, calm down. Nothing is going to happen to anybody. I promise, she informed the merchants in a calming manner. Almost immediately, they began to quiet to listen to the jonin. She then turned her attention towards her team. I'm going to move ahead out of the village. If I come back, then there was nothing to worry about. If you see a giant fireball in the sky, then 2 of you rush forward to help me fight, while the 3rd person stays here to defend the merchants. If you a giant snake though, then that means flee and keep the villagers safe. Do you understand? We aren't going to abandon you, Anko-sensei. Shikamaru informed her sharply. I'm not asking you to abandon me. I won't die. If that happens, I'll be fleeing as well. What I'm asking is for you all to prioritize the safety of our clients. Is that understood? Anko replied sharply. It is. He replied with a sigh. Hinata and Dosa nodded in affirmation as well, showing their understanding. Once the plan was finalized, Anko marched forward by herself. She exited the gates of the town and waited in front of them, preparing for combat. A minute passed by before she received company. 5 shinobi, as Hinata predicted, arrived on the scene. Anko recognized their uniforms immediately as Kirigakure shinobi still loyal to the Yonde Mizukage, Yagura. They didn't bother trying to be stealthy. I suppose I can trust that either they do not want to fight us, or they just aren't the most capable shinobi. Either way is fine with me. Anko noted in her head. Konoha shinobi, we mean you no harm. We ask that you surrender the merchant caravan you are with to us. We are Kirigakure shinobi, and will escort them to their village. One of the shinobi informed her. He spoke in a tone that suggested he was demanding her. I'm sorry, but that wasn't part of our mission stipulations. The caravan requested for us to deliver them to their village. Anko informed them coolly. There's been a change in policy. All travelers that step foot into Mizu no Kuni must be approved by Kirigakure shinobi to make sure they are not rebel allies or sympathizers. This was new law passed by Yagura-sama himself. The same shinobi declared emotionlessly. Anko soon noticed that the other 4 shinobi were starting to reach for weapons. The jonin resisted the urge to roll her eyes. They aren't even subtle about this. The Mizukage really has some shit shinobi within his ranks. She noted in disgust. Regardless, she began to channel chakra throughout her body, and prepared for the first strike. Regardless, they're hostile. They're going to attack regardless. Guess there's only way this confrontation is going to go. I was really hoping to not start something here, but if they're going to attack first. It's odd that this law has never reached the ears of the Hokage. Anko told the shinobi. I don't believe it. Sorry, but we're still going to transport them. Perhaps you can be persuaded. One of the shinobi declared as he charged forward towards Anko with a kunai. Before Anko could respond back, a giant spike made of pure ice developed directly underneath the man. The spike shot forward from the ground and impaled him in the heart, killing him instantly. What the dash, one of the remaining Kirigakure shinobi gasped. It's the ice style. One of those bloodline freaks is nearby. The lead Kirigakure shinobi hissed. Although she was confused about the origin of the ice, Anko proceeded to take advantage of the Kirigakure shinobi's surprise and attack. She quickly held out her hand and pointed it at one of the shinobi. Hidden shadow snake hands. 4 snakes rushed forward from the sleeve of Anko's jacket. They went straight for the neck of one of the Kirigakure shinobi. Taking him by surprise, the snakes bit down, poisoning him. The man struggled to break free before his eyes widened and he fell to the ground in pain. Bitch! I'll dash. Before the man could finish his statement, 3 more spikes of ice developed from the ground, impaling him, the shinobi that Anko's snakes had just poisoned, and the 4th Kirigakure shinobi. All 3 died instantly. The only surviving shinobi was the lead Kirigakure shinobi. He looked around in surprise at the deaths around him before glaring at the jonin in front of him. You are an accomplice with the rebels, I see. Konoha must be working with them. Yagura-sama will not be happy about this. This will mean war. He declared ominously. We're not working with anybody, but it doesn't matter in the end. You won't be telling him anything. Dead man don't have anything to say. Anko hissed in response. Anko made another series of hand signs, preparing to unleash a large fireball into the sky, and have 2 of her subordinates join her in battle and against the shinobi. Before she could finish the attack, however, a large pillar of ice developed underneath the Kirigakure shinobi's body. The pillar consumed his body, completely encasing him in ice. He was unable to move or do anything. Immediately after, a single sunbon flew from behind Anko from the direction of the gate to the city, and hit the ice pillar, going straight through it and making contact with the man's body. It hit him in his chest, where his heart was. The ice immediately shattered and the man fell to the ground. The Sinbon pierced deep enough into his heart that it killed him. Who is the ice release user? Where are you? Anko questioned in her head. Her eyes started to look around the battlefield and, in the direction where the Sinbon came from. She, unfortunately, could not see anything. Are they already gone? Seriously? Anko remained motionless, looking around for that ice-style ninjutsu user. She remained in position for battle, preparing for any form of skirmish. A few minutes passed by before Shikamaru, Hinata, and Dosu, along with the merchant caravan, came outside the gate of the town and headed towards the Jonin. Anko Taishu, is everything all right? Dosu questioned. I'm fine. She grumbled in response. She then looked towards Hinata. You had her Byakugan still active, right? So, you saw what happened with the ice. The Hyuga nodded in her affirmation. Where was the person? Did you see them? As soon as it appeared you were about to engage them, the person appeared from hiding. I saw them attack and then disappear when the last shinobi died. Hinata admitted with a frown. I don't know where they went though. They just seemed to disappear. Getting away from the Byakugan? In a way that Hinata has absolutely no idea where they went to? That should be impossible. Anko nearly screamed. Anko-san? Is everything okay? Anko was pulled out of her thoughts by the questions of one of the merchants. The entire caravan was looking at her with concern on their faces. The Jonin quickly nodded her head. I'm fine, yes. The men are gone. We'll keep an eye out for more during our trip to Kibo. She told the merchants. Although, I need to know something. You all promised me this, and you all promised the Hokage this, but I need to make sure. Are any of you affiliated in some way with either the rebels of Kirigakure or the Mizukige's army? No. One of the merchants quickly shook her head. Choosing a side in the conflict is suicide. The other side would simply kill you if they thought you were against them. No, none of us have any affiliation. I promise that. Another merchant stated. After hearing a variety of reasons why each merchant was not working with either side in the civil war, Anko finally heard enough. She held out her hand, signaling for the merchants to stop talking. I believe you all. I believe you. She told them. It seems though, that the Mizukige may suspect something though. We all need to be careful. We're going to increase to the village and try and get there as quickly as possible. I don't want to risk anything happening. Is that fine with everybody? The merchants were quiet for a moment. A few seconds passed by before one, Haku, stood forward and nodded his head. We're willing to follow your request, Anko-san. Just lead us to our village as fast and safely as possible. He told her with a smile. Then it is settled. Anko commented as she started to walk forward. Let's get on our way then. Keep up the pace with me. With those words, the group began their march forward toward the village of Kibo. Anko marched at the front of the caravan, Hinata and Shikamaru to the side, and Dosu in the rear. All of them were on the lookout for any possible attacker, whether they were working for the Mizukige or for the rebels. The group was in a dangerous territory now. They needed to be careful with every step they took. That's it for this reading. Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfictions. Looking forward to having you on board again.